Hello, everyone. Just like last year, the Game Awards are about to be upon us. And just like
So,
last time, it's probably going to be a timestamp where, at least myself, I cannot be present because it probably will be in the middle of the fucking night. Again, I understand it's primarily for mostly an American audience and not for Europe, but it's still kind of a dick move, especially considering how usually events like E3 or other directs tends to accommodate instead for that kind of
Well,
I think the
inconvenience.
problem
you
is
know
like,
how it is.
well, okay, you know how the awards game shows go? Like, well, late at night, it's great for the big classiness of it all. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be one good universal time for everyone across the world to meet, sadly.
yeah.
Still,
It's basically the best way I can put it, like how the Oscars or
yeah, no, it is the best way to put it. Still, Joe Kieghly's usual shit show, as I mentioned, is about to actually be probably released. This time, I don't think he's trying to hype it up too much. At least by the time we're recording this, he hasn't done what he did last time and said, "Oh, there are these gajillion premiere. Please be hyped, guys." You
Okay,
know,
okay, okay.
he when he presented the award categories, he did said this is going to be the biggest show ever. So
that one he says that all the time, so I'm
Which,
not that
okay,
well,
surprised.
there's someone knows a pattern. If he doesn't say that, something's wrong.
okay, the actual Game Awards themselves have had varying degrees here. Like, I'd say 2017 through 2019 were actually pretty good shows. And while some awards did feel a bit rigged here and there, for the most part, I do say, for the most part, I feel like the awards were mostly fairly won. Now, I'm mainly going from the 2017 and onwards, since 2017 was when we actually started commentating on them. I recall enjoying the 2015 one back before we started commentating on them
You have
officially.
to remember that before like 2015, the Game Awards were really just a small kind of event. The biggest thing we did got out of those was kind of a laugh when Reggie showed up and announced, "Oh, by the way, we're having Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Cranky Kong is in it. Bye."
Actually, I thought you were gonna actually talk about in 2015 when Geoff Keighley probably burned bridges with Konami when he had them
Yeah,
sing
it tends
Quiet
to
Seam and all
again
that.
because that was the year basically of Kojima the party, and in Konami literally did not allow it to actually go there and get this award.
The reason I
That
bring this up is that, well, starting with 2020, it definitely became apparent this. At best, the Game Awards were a popularity contest. At their worst, they could be absolutely rigged. Like, I know it may sound like
also chock
conspiracy
full of
talk.
anti-vape commercials.
Yes, look,
Hilarious.
and look, I know it may seem as conspiracy talk, but I'm sorry. I ain't buying that Last of Us 2 really earned all those awards, and I ain't even talking about the hate. Like, some of them were just, wah. And 2021 kind of had a bit of a similar feel. Now, granted, it was a game that I would argue at least deserved more of its praise, but all the same, it was a little too much of a sweep to the point where, again, we kind of had to tilt our heads here at that. Now, is there a game in particular this year that could potentially be, this year's a prized child of sorts?
Yes,
Can because
absolutely. Let's start this in order, actually, because again, the first category that is presented is the aptly named Game of the Year. The contestants are the followings for this: A Plague Tale Requiem, developed by Asobo Studios and published by Focus Entertainment; Elden Ring, developed by From Software and published by Bandai Namco; God of War Ragnarok, developed by Sony Santa Monica and published by Sony; Horizon Forbidden West, developed by Guerrilla Games and published by Sony; Stray, developed by Blue 12 Studio and published by Annapurna; and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, developed by Monolith Soft and published by Nintendo.
Okay, I just need to tackle a few elephants in the room here. First of all,
What is
Stray.
Stray doing here?
Okay,
it's for Shiroi.
okay, I'm just
She's part of the council.
okay. Here's the usual pattern with game awards that I've noticed. Sometimes they'll include a special indie game here and there.
Oh
Now,
my god, I just realized, Jova.
what?
Call me crazy because that's literally just pulling the hardest read. We're gonna have Stray win just so they can send a cat onto the stage to get the prize.
Oh God, if
Do it.
you know
With
what,
Joseph Ferris having to give the award to the fucking feline.
that would
Good.
be amazing, if only because the Game Awards are kind of a farce in that regard. But yeah, no, like, here's my take on Stray. It's a great game, but I get the feeling it's there to be, oh, look, we respect indie games, guys, because we're considering one for a Game of the Year. Like, it happened last year with Hades, just saying.
Let me put it. Well,
have-
Hades was a bit more deserving, and I'm about to actually say something else. For games released during this year for respective indie, I'd say Cult of the Lamb was a better candidate.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
It's
that
much
one
more
was
famous.
there.
It has actually more passion behind its art style. It's a roguelike, meaning almost endless replayability on that front. Stray
That's what
is a
gaming
good.
journalists love.
It's kind of a good technical demo to showcase what it wants to do.
Oh no.
For a game about a cat and everything. But it suffers similar to something that Scorn had at the same time. It's rather too short, and it kind of ends just as it's about to, be even more interesting than you want. You just left wanting more.
Hold on, so Stray being kind of a tech demo starring an animal, don't tell me it's the goat simulator of our time now.
Still, but my point is that I personally did voted, very unsurprisingly, for Elden Ring. Like,
Oh!
I'm
I'm-
a Souls guy who likes
Yeah.
Elden Ring.
Like, look, I want to say this, however. Aside from Stray, I argue that all the other contestants are fine being here, even a Plague Tale Requiem, and I'm actually happy that the Game Awards are actually remembering Xenoblade Chronicles this time around.
That said,
the reason why they chose Xenoblade was because
people were
got
not stop
his
complaining.
ass multiple
otherwise.
times.
Okay. I will say this, though. The other elephant in the room. God of War Ragnarok is kind of a very recent game to be in on these awards, given how, again, there have been plenty of other games that have been
Unfortunately-
denied showing up in awards because
Like
they were
Xenoblade
too
Chronicles 2.
soon.
It's okay. You can say Sonic Frontiers.
Oh yeah, that
But
too, but
Jovah-
don't
Jovah,
worry.
however, has a point because the Game Awards do this shit all the time, where they favor a particular game and possibly one of those big AAA, popcorn kind of budgeted games.
This is why
that's got released recently.
This is why I kind of wonder and fear a bit that God of War Ragnarok might just be the favorite child of this year's Game Awards because, okay, look, if you were going to include it, why not include it for next year, since again, going off of the same reasoning, several
might as
other
well
games
also
were
say-
denied.
I might as well also say this. Do both of you know any particular spoiler about the development of Ragnarok or about its story and characters?
I know about the story here, but I'm curious to know what's up with the development.
The
Well,
only thing I
again,
know
this
is that
is just to mention
PlayStation
for-
All-Stars Battle Royales came
Yeah,
out.
that's cool, but it's just a simple Easter egg. It doesn't really spoil anything in particular. But it's just to tell for the audience, there will be some mentioning of that. I will personally try to not to say anything particularly detailed about it, but I will have to mention one thing or two, about what the game does. So be forewarned, this is your one warning about it if you haven't played the game yet.
Anyway, there's also Horizon Forbidden West. Good game, great sequel.
It's fine. It just had the unfortunate timing, similar to its predecessor, to be released against a competitor. And just like last time, it still held on its own. Like I said, it is relatively harmless in that kind of thing. And I argue that the first game, at least personally, is my favorite first-party game for the PS4. For the PS4 by Sony. It's just not my favorite PS4 game. Period.
And then we got also a Plague Tale Requiem, which I'll admit I have not gotten around to playing. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Plague Tale. I enjoyed commentating on it. Just, yes. It was never enough to the point where I went, oh, I absolutely need to buy this game here and there. Like, okay, let me put it like this. Plague Tale Requiem, I guess we could consider that technically another indie game.
Not really. The first
again,
one,
like I said,
argue, yes.
like I said,
first
in the
one,
most technical sense, like, I don't really think the sequel counts as an indie game.
The first one, yes, but this one, aside from the fact that, sure, the publisher is the same, but in this case being a sequel, the publisher actually gave it more of a budget than anything. And compared to other indies, this one tries to, again, showcase more its how it looks like rather than actually how to play. And to be fair, this sequel actually addressed some of those complaints. But again, because of a bigger budget and everything, this hardly feels like an indie.
So, okay, which one do we think is gonna win, guys?
Again, like I said, I just said that I voted Elden Ring. I hope it does. The fear will be God of War Ragnarok, I guess, or Stray, just for the stupid.
No, the real fear is Horizon Forbidden West because everyone forgot about that game.
Wait, hold on. So why would it be a fear if that wins? Like, I mean, okay, if it does...
Because nobody cares.
Okay, to be fair, if a game really was the best of the year, but people just forgot about it, it does technically deserve it. That said, I do get where you're coming from, in which case that
burned under Elden Ring.
Okay, like...
It still sold a lot, to be honest.
Honestly...
Okay, let's ignore sales or hype here, like, the games themselves, like, you know, I'm a guy who likes to just judge stuff not off of its popularity, but how the actual execution was, like... And granted, so
I always see like the Horizon franchise as the most compared to like within like Sony fans and reception wise, it's just the most it exists.
Not for me, Dej. I can argue that, like I said, the or at least the original, because I haven't played Forbidden West yet, is my favorite first party because. Even if I might have some minor gripes with story elements, and even then I can ignore that if I want, you know, as an actual game on its own, it actually feels the most, you know, because of its open world nature and, you know, creature hunting kind of design, well, you know, philosophy behind it as a Western RPG, it kind of feels the more satisfying to be played. I argue, sadly, even more than God of War 2018, which is a different beast altogether.
Me, personally, I voted for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I mean, again, like Tio said, aside from... Well, okay, you know what? One could maybe argue Stray being here. I personally don't agree to it, but okay, if you're, like, strictly in it for games that are, like, just about life simulating and playing as animals, I guess Stray does that remarkably well. Yeah, okay. I know I'm probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but I kind of do agree that Stray feels like it's a good game, but not Game of the Year material. But yeah, no. Okay, aside from Stray, these arguably all have a place on here. That said, I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is, in some way, the most unique of them. In that regard. Like... Again, like, they're all great in
definitely
quality.
Has the more unique gameplay. The Xenoblade series definitely always had, its own identity as a JRPG.
I will say this, though. My big fear is that God of War Ragnarok is going to sweep this one hard. Because, again, all the warning bells are there. Like, oh, we suddenly mysteriously just put in this very recent game in here. Like... I don't know.
There's also apparently a bit of a pattern that every 2 years a Sony title wins, allegedly so far.
The only reason why I want Xenoblade to win is because one, it's funny, and two, God of War and Elden Ring will be fighting each other, so all the distraction will go to Xenoblade, just smoking its pot, watching two animals fight.
You got him.
How many people are gonna be? How many people are going to be mad that a JRPG won, I wonder?
Well, let's see.
Nintendo fans, to be sure.
Nintendo fans, Donkey.
Arlo.
All right, then. So, yeah.
Walls, but let's move on.
The next category is...
Best Game Direction, awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design.
Oh my god.
The contestants are following Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and newcomer Immortality, developed and self-published by Half Mermaid. I actually know nothing about this last title.
Me neither. Like, I just love how all the other titles are literally just a repeat of the Game of the Year category.
This has happened also at least last year, I noticed.
Again, I'm going to say it. I really get the feeling God of War Ragnarok is going to sweep this one. If only because...
What do you vote in instead?
I'll admit... God of War Ragnarok's direction is pretty dang good, so I won't be as miffed if it wins this one here. I will say this. For me, it's a knot between God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. That said, what is Stray doing here? Like, again, you do know that the main character is a cat, right? Yes, I know there's the whole robots thing, but...
The idea, again, remember, this category is about creative visual innovation in game direction and design, which means, also creating kind of a world, how it feels like, how you actually interact with it and everything.
Okay, fair enough in that regard.
Stray is actually, no, I can tell you this, compared to the other titles, at least from what I know, again, I don't know if you're about Immortality, Stray is very linear. Its strength derives in how the world around you see around is constructed and how you can actually interact with, like how you can interact with the robots in their daily lives, But in terms of, game progression, it's basically a straight line, kind of like, compared to, God of War Ragnarok, which despite having some linearity, it does give you still a relatively slightly open approach, and instead Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring, which are properly open world,
It really is.
Yeah, so, when you put it like that, I feel like Stray might win it.
I could see Stray winning it. Again, I'll admit, I know nothing about Immortality. Like, I have never heard about this game until today, so,
Apologies if it's actually a good game, we just don't know.
Yeah. I will say this, I guess, aside from Immortality, I think Elden Ring is, okay, don't get me wrong. I get that Elden Ring works on a formula, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I do wonder if it's gonna lose out, possibly because it's more or less the Dark Souls system when you get down to it, just more of an open world thing. I argue
instead the opposite, because it's also the one I voted. Compared to its predecessors, despite the predecessors had a more Metroidvania approach, would have big areas that were connected to each other via small kind of strings about it, but were more like sacks. Instead, here is this gigantic, more proper open world with a shit ton of micro dungeons that you can get into just by being from the open field and everything. If anything, this is a huge step up for the kind of genre that From Software did with JRPGs, and that's also why it gets my vote.
I could see it in that regard. It's just
what about you, Deji?
I'm gonna give it to Stray.
All right, then.
As for me, I guess I'm going to go with God of War Ragnarok. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't really want that game to sweep it, but I'll admit, I did dig God of War Ragnarok's direction the best out of the games that I'm actually familiar with on this list.
All right, next category, Best Narrative for Outstanding Storytelling and Narrative Development in a Game. We have the
awards. The candidates are A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality.
Okay, I'm starting
I'm gonna let you know.
Did we check the wrong category perchance?
Okay, I'm gonna let you know. Horizon Forbidden West is not winning that one.
Oh yeah, the story of
Forbidden West. I don't know much about that yet.
Oh my god, there's something I want to talk about so bad.
I think I know.
I can tell you this instead. I know the story about God of War Ragnarok. I don't think it's a bad story, but I argue it's not told the best way they could, courtesy also a couple of the writers. So it's more of a problem with how the dialogues are constructed rather than actually being the narrative. But I do believe it kind of loses at least a point because of that.
Okay, if I may. Again, discounting Immortality because none of us are really familiar with that game. I feel like this one is a bit more of a popularity contest, if only because, yeah, I get it, these guys were in previous categories, but I feel like each of their narratives has something holding them back from being the best narrative of games this year.
Okay, without giving it away for Forbidden West, they pull a Leighton twist.
Okay.
Again, not to spoil, but yeah. Hey, Des.
That's the vaguest way I can say, because it's like, what?
Hey, Des.
Maybe it has not yet received a DLC is also slightly worrying. Maybe that's what they reserve in the announcement.
Hey, Des, can you imagine how mad the fanbase would have been if Bayonetta 3 was on this category?
Honestly, if people actually paid attention to what happened to Bayonetta,
I agree.
People were paying attention to, like, if Elden Ring didn't come out and just bury it, you would have seen videos complaining about this game's plot.
Okay. Look, like I said, I'm not gonna call any of these plots overall horrendous. for the most part. But again, they each have something holding them back that I'm like, come on, guys. Surely there were other games we could have picked for better plot here.
Okay, the only one I slightly disagree upon is A Plague Tale Requiem, because I did check what the plot is like, and I think it's fine for one song to do without many particular caveat attached to it.
Which is
how's Elden Ring's narrative? Because I know it's made by the creator of A Song of Fire and Ice.
Yeah, it is written partially. It was contributed by George R.R. Martin, yes, but it's never clear the extent on which Evil Santa actually performed. I can tell you this, it's still a very great story in the similar ways the other Souls game are about, fallen worlds, deities in conflict, different factions, each with their own agenda. It's bigger in scope, just like with the rest of the game. What it holds back to me is the fact that, as fans noted, a lot of micro storylines, some character quests and everything, were for some reason cut away from the release of the game. And it's not even seems to be a case of, being repurposed for later as DLC or patches or something like that. No, they're just gone, and there's no real good justification for it, because essentially there are also good side quests on their own. Like one involves one of the early NPCs that you meet, turning out to be crucial in getting one of the endings, which kind of might have also helped on that front and give you more characterization to the NPC in itself. And it just feels odd that it was cut away. I know that it's the modus operandi of Hidetaka Miyazaki and From Software, but it just feels odd to me.
My thing about Elden Ring's plot is that, plus the fact that, I don't know, something about it feels a little disjointed along the way. I can't really go too much into it for, again, spoilers' sake, but, it doesn't feel as well connected as I'd say Dark Souls felt with its narrative, which, to be fair...
It's because of also the scope of being bigger in everything means that all of things feel more diluted.
And again, I don't take that to mean it's a bad story, it's just that, really? Best narrative in a game of the year?
I have to be blunt, however, I can't think, immediately any other game that released this year or at the end of the previous one that might fit this category 100%.
Sonic Frontiers, obviously.
I don't know all the details about. I know the key things, but not everything.
I don't know the plot. I just know. Look, Ian Flynn wrote it, so that automatically makes it a 10.
Okay. As someone who has seen the game, got the plot and all that, okay, it might be a bit biased to put it on narrative in development of a game, but I will argue it's more deserving than Forbidden West being on here, if only because... that ending. That being said, though, even aside from Sonic Frontiers, stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 arguably had a nice enough
Actually, yeah, that's a
narrative.
good point. Why is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 not here?
Like, I mean...
It's an RPG, that's what's... Oh, okay.
If Elden Ring, it's an RPG and it's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, they don't count as an RPG. They count as a character
it doesn't have a more realistic art style. That's why.
So Tio,
no, it's because it has it's not turn based, so it doesn't count as an RPG.
So Tio, without spoiling God of War Ragnarok's plot here, don't get me wrong.
Like I said, it's fine, but the problem relies in how the characters, actually convey what they're supposed to say. Okay. The best way I can tell you without spoiling too much is that characters that are supposed to appear more, at least elegant, or in a way of, in a case of authority, they kind of speak like a homeless person that you find outside of a mall.
It's kind of weird in that regard too, because
like some characters are justified in doing that, others not so much.
Alas, I guess if I'm gonna have to vote here, I'm gonna vote A Plague Tale Requiem, if only because I feel like that's the plot with the least issues here. My issue is just that, well, it's kind of just level here. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad story or anything, it's just, well, how to put it like this? It is a story that technically does its stuff right for the most part, but it doesn't feel like it really shoots above for the stars, if you catch my drift here. It's like, okay, we got a narrative, it's good, and that's pretty much it.
What about you, Deji?
I don't know. So someone choose for me, because
Again, my take would be a Plague Tale Requiem, if only because I feel like it's the story that does the least bad. Again, out of the stories that I'm familiar with, I'm sorry to any fans of Half Mermaid or Immortality, but that game just...
I don't know anything about this game.
Again, the thing that confuses me is that this game is getting some pretty high honors, but I swear, it went under my radar. Like, I feel like I am, for the most part, relatively well aware of even the obscure ones. Never heard about Immortality. And if I did, I'm just forgetting about it.
Yeah, I'll just choose Plague Tale, just to be safe.
I wanted so desperately to vote for Elden Ring on this one, but I cannot deny what I said before, so I have to choose a Plague Tale Requiem as well, just for what he said.
Okay,
basically.
So on to the next category, Best Art Direction. Our contestants are Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Stray, and Scorn.
Developed by EAB Software and published by Kepler Interactive. The record the categories for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation.
I feel like we have seen some of these contestants again before. I feel like there were some other games we could have pulled
Why
from here.
is Cult of the Lamb not here? It's entirely 2D animated, you fucks.
Again, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has an interesting enough art style.
And don't get me, this happened, if not last... Okay, forgot which specific year. This happened the year 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim was released, where it was not nominated for this particular category. And are you high? Vanillaware prides itself on his hand-drawn, almost paint-like, game artistry, and you don't even consider candidate them for this shit.
I'm don't get me wrong, I get it. Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Forbidden West, good games, but when it comes to their art styles... Okay, you know what? It's not even that their art styles are bad, but are they really that unique that they're considered the absolute cream of the corn?
I get the idea what Geoff and the other jury members believe in this is that they believe about attention to details more than anything. The fact that a character, you can see every single, lace, fiber, and button of the character's outfit more than anything.
Which... I feel like that should get its own category rather than being the best art direction, but okay, if we're
Especially because that's, again, what I've been saying for a while, the stigma of recent times, that most AAA type of games, instead of having a proper kind of artistic direction, or, in a particular style, they prefer instead to rely on being, trying to look a bit realistic in terms of, appearance. And just pride themselves of, this is pumping up the console's potential. This means this art style is great.
Hey,
and they end up starting looking very similar to each other. But let's get
regardless. Why don't we start with the game that's actually newest among here, Scorn?
Okay, let me mention this because I want to be the absolute fairest, and this is the only category in which this game is actually nominated. And I don't believe it's for the best, because Scorn is an interesting kind of project as a game, but it suffers from the same problems, a combination of stuff similar to Stray and Duke Nukem Forever. It took too long to be made, unfortunately, like 8 years or something. It even had a Kickstarter campaign. And the finished product is way too short, and it prides itself more on how it looks rather than how it plays. There are only a couple of puzzles, very few combat scenes. The puzzles are not even that spectacular to begin with, to be honest, and it's over before you know it. However, for this category alone, I think it's perfectly justified, and it kind of receives my vote because it captures the essence of an H.R. Geiger, kind of.
It's trying to be like the 80s horror films, right? Like Aliens and whatnot.
Yeah, again, H.R. Geiger, similar to stuff like also. There was a point in game that also Darkseid. There you go. The Darkseid series also took inspiration from that, and again, I think that is sufficient enough for it to have in my vote compared to the others. I don't think any of the others have a technically wrong art style, but try to think about them and consider what makes them unique. In case of Elden Ring, it would be monster design ideally, but that sadly is still relatively similar to previous Dark Souls entries. God of War Ragnarok also has monster design, and it's, fine on its own, but you can argue it's not, as imposing. Same goes for the robotic dinosaurs and creatures for Horizon Forbidden West, which in this case are much more, but the focus is mostly just on the human characters, and the creatures are more of a background element or, an enemies to fight. And Stray...
tech demo. I mean, don't get me.
The cyberpunk aesthetic is actually good, honestly, to be looking. It's a good thing that in recent years, bumps on heels aside, games seem to be starting to understand what made the cyberpunk genre great to look at the very least. But in terms of performing the best, in terms of, achieving a technical, artistic design of animation and being creative about it, not so much.
I will say this, when I call Stray a tech demo, yes, as a tech demo, it does manage to crank out some pretty good visuals, which might give it a bit of a chance here. That being said, how much people can do with those visuals is kind of a bit up to date. Again, it's a cool-looking, technological, futuristic city, but I don't know, I feel like Horizon Forbidden West kind of gets the whole mix with nature and technology thing a bit better than Stray. And to be fair,
when you look in the context of things, Horizon is a AAA game funded by Sony.
This is, again...
Stray
is an indie game, which...
so it's
it does.
I don't want to say it's comparing apples to oranges, but it's comparing...
In case you're wondering, Scorn did receive similar to Cuphead, Scorn did receive some extra funding from Xbox or from Microsoft. This is why also when it came to release on console, it's mostly, for the time being, it's an Xbox exclusive. It probably will be multi-plat in the future, similar to Cuphead, but for the time being, it's staying there and on PC.
I'll say this about Scorn. It definitely has a shot. I'm just personally not really for its art style and direction here. And you know what? That might just be a personal thing on my regard, but okay. Which one do you think's gonna win? Me? I'm guessing God of War Ragnarok. But as for what I'm gonna vote for, Horizon Forbidden West. I know...
It's either one of the Sony titles or a Plague Tale Requiem, easily.
Don't get me wrong, I get it. Forbidden West is a AAA title, and Stray is an indie title. But at the end of the day, I dig Forbidden West's art style more. And again, the art direction with the cool robo-dinos, that's pretty hard to top. What about you, Dej?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's kind of hard. I'll go with Scorn because unique in quote unquote horror aesthetic.
If Scorn was nominated in any other category like the gameplay or the narrative, but I would justifiably say asking what it was doing there. But this one feels the most justified to me.
Now, before we go to the next category, can I just say this? In case someone thinks, oh, well, aren't you guys being a bit hard on these games being repeats? Let me put it like this. If these games were the absolute best at everything, I would not mind them showing up in this many categories. The thing is, I don't really feel like these games are, the absolute 24-karat golden games of literally every category
made them look like,
to the point where we have to repeat them over and over again. Don't get me wrong, we've had some issues with the Game Awards, but usually it's with one game maybe sweeping in for awards here, but here, a sweep of some sort feels inevitable. Speaking of which, the next category, Best Score in Music.
Best Score in Music, outstanding music inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack.
What do they mean by inclusive of score, if I may ask?
As in, again, it's mostly referring to the previous statement. Outstanding music, which includes the following.
Fair enough, then. Okay. A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring.
Composed by Olivier Derivière. Elden Ring composed by Tsukasa Saito. God of War Ragnarok composed by Bear McCreary. Metal Hellsinger composed by Two Feathers. That's a title.
And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 by Yasunori Mitsuda.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Okay, I will cut the shit to the root just to tell you in general properly on this. Almost all of these nominees are perfectly serviceable, in terms of actually having a score and potentially being candidateable for here. But I do argue they are mostly okay. Like they serve their purpose for the background for what they need to do, despite their uniqueness. Like I mentioned in the past, both Olivier Derivier and Bear McCree are great composer, allowed to experiment and stuff, and it's showcased also in their respective titles. Elden Ring soundtrack is perfectly fine. They have great boss themes and everything, but I don't think it really fits the Game of the Year material in terms of the music. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is kind of on the same level, great stuff and everything, but I kind of had to say that someone who has been a metalhead since adolescence, Metal Hellsinger takes easily the spot out of all of them, just both for its original composition and its licensed tracks, not to mention the collaboration with actual metal band and singer, which dramatically elevates it above literally everything else to me. So you guys may vote.
Yeah, let's really address the elephant in the
learning
room
that
here.
you're a metalhead actually explains a lot about you.
Okay, let's cover the really big elephant in the room here. You can call me biased or whatnot. No, I will hold Sonic Frontiers at the very least deserve to be in this category. Because
I actually listened to a couple of the tracks and I do agree. Why wasn't it at least nominated?
Like Sonic Frontiers
Mario
is
plus Rabbids.
Like Sonic Frontiers is the flipping Metal Gear Rising, the Devil May Cry 5 of Sonic soundtracks. Like it has gotten already to a point of meme status, and I mean the whole status meme here, which is not a small feat. But even still, the tracks are legit great. And it's got tracks for everything. It's got, of course, the ambivalent score, and it has the rocking lyrical tunes here. Sonic games never really missed the mark on soundtrack for the most part. Sonic Frontiers knocked it out of the park. It's weird that it did not at least get a nomination here. And yeah, Sparks of Hope, that's a missing too.
How do you have a game where Grant Kirkhope, Yoko Shimomura, and I forgot this other guy's name, Conquer. He's the composer of Ori and the Blind Forest, and I believe he also did Halo Infinite.
Oh, okay.
You have those three people. Well, that's star power right there. And Geoff is like, no.
How much heresy is to say that I kind of prefer the soundtrack with first Mario Plus Rabbids?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I
do believe it fits better there. But Mario Plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope soundtrack is fine, but I don't think it's as memorable as the one of the
That's fine. It's just it's the idea,
To be fair, Dej, Cloud is one thing, execution is another. Now, I do agree based off of execution that Sparks of Hope is missing, but I will say that Sonic Frontiers is definitely the big missing one.
By that logic, we should have, Fairy Fence Rap because it has Nobuo Ematsu for one song.
Let me put it like this. I like Sparks of Hope for its actual execution. Even sometimes the best composers can turn in a pretty crappy score here and there. I'd argue God of War did not really earn its spot on
Like
here.
you said, it's mostly ambiental stuff, which is serviceable for what he wants to do, even stuff like the boss fights, but nothing more. The one thing that Elden Ring does have compared to his previous Dark Souls games is that the previous Dark Souls games wanted to create an atmosphere by having music only for the boss fights, specifically only for the boss fights, and maybe one cutscene or two. Otherwise, the game remains basically silent in terms of music in order to create this sense of dread and atmosphere. Unless there's a specific event. While Elden Ring instead tries to, change things up by having an actual score in multiple places, like even the levels, which did caught off guard a lot of fans, including me, but it does work out, actually.
That being said,
enough to get my vote, though.
Once again, guys, we have a set of repeats here with Plague Tale, Elden Ring, and God of War Ragnarok. I'd say also Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but that one's been in way less categories than the others.
I vote for Xenoblade.
I voted for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 too. I feel like that one has the best balance across soundtrack.
There were also more composers in that, to my knowledge, but they only included one.
Again,
it's the more iconic Deji. It's the one that has been sticking since the Xenogears.
I will say this. At this point, I am getting a bit frustrated with how much we're repeating kind of the same titles again. Especially on this one where, there are some weird omissions.
Well, the good news, Jovah, is that the next category will have less repetition.
All right.
But I'm not sure you're gonna like the new entries.
Okay. Let me read this one. Best audio design, recognizing the best in game audio and sound design. Very specific. And we have 3 repeats, but 2 newcomers. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, made by Infinity Ward and Activision, yada yada yada. Elden Ring from Software, of course. God of War Ragnarok from Sony Santa Monica. Gran Turismo 7, okay, from Polyphony. And Horizon Forbidden West, Guerrilla Games.
Now, I will mention these repeats and odd titles, a presentation aside, taking aside outside the face value. For the configuring itself, all of these entries make sense in some kind of way. This is specifically referring to audio design, as in how each of your footsteps reflect about the character, stepping on a specific surface. How much do you feel the direction like an enemy or a projectile is approaching, if it's from your left, right, up or down, and something like that. How good enough the game is conveying that. And each of these titles do provide that kind of answering, in how to provide, like in Call of Duty, say what you want about, again, Activision and how Call of Duty, but strictly for this category, it makes sense that a game like Call of Duty should have, a good audio design in order to facilitate as best a player in order to, orient themselves for a multiplayer session. I don't know if it actually succeeds in that, but at least I get the spirit behind it. Same goes for stuff, like
Call of Duty,
Forbidden West being a hunting kind of game, which makes sense. Having to hear specific days. Stuff like this. God of War Ragnarok zigzags a bit like this because it has what I just said, but mostly also in the form of characters telling you, like, oh, look out, you have an attack coming from this direction. So it is present still, but it's a bit less than the other titles. Gran Turismo 7 is the only one that I think is the least present here. Again, regardless of the game's actual quality or the controversy surrounding it. Like, for the purpose of what the game wants to do, the reflecting this category, I guess it would be how good it feels, like how much do you feel like you're actually controlling a car in terms of sound design, like how much do you feel it's replicating the idea of burning the asphalt, and going around and hearing the other cars surrounding you, or the wind flying through your vehicle, stuff like that. But
yeah, you have to try to screw up a racing game sound design.
And I don't think it's that, compared to the rest of the problems with Gran Turismo 7, I don't think this is a problem. But again, it feels a bit weak compared to the others.
Question.
But in general,
how mad are people going to be if Gran Turismo 7 does win? Like, I know, even though it's a Best Audio Design award
I cannot tell you.
Gran Turismo 7 was absolutely hated by fans and players alike.
I cannot tell you because I can tell about, again, despite Gran Turismo 7 and potentially Call of Duty being technically on a weaker kind of level, depending on how their actual quality is or their presentation, I do believe any of these candidates are perfectly serviceable for this category, to be honest.
Now,
so I don't really have a personal favorite, but if I had to vote, well, you know me, I chose Elden Ring.
So which one do we think's gonna win?
This is connected to something I will say later, so just keep this in the back of your brain. If God of War Ragnarok wins this one, it will be very hilarious. But again, like I said, the kid count this as foreshadowing.
Okay, imagine, what if Sony actually money-handed them to make Gran Turismo 7 win? Because Sony have been trying to play damage control with that game for quite some time now.
Last I checked, the game is receiving updates regularly, but they don't seem to be enough to actually grab the attention to the player base. So I'm guessing it's more of a case of the studio is trying, but it's not much.
Again, I just don't want another case look with Last of Us 2 where, yeah, no, those Game Awards were definitely put to try and get people to like Last of Us 2. No. But, okay, let's see. As for which one I would vote for, you are right that all of them technically do have a proper standing here and there. I mean, granted, I could argue that a lot of games have earned this right here, so it's not as bad seeing the repeats here. Again, a bit frustrating that we can't get more variety. I guess if I had to pick one, I'd go with Horizon Forbidden West. Only because the robot dino sounds are cool.
And again, the being a hunting game, it's crucial to have good audio design. Experiencing your surrounding, Aloy moving through, say, foliage or a desert kind of terrain.
What about
again,
you, Dej?
It makes sense.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with God of War Ragnarok.
Good game.
Best performance awarded to an individual for voice overacting, motion, and/or performance capture.
Okay,
you know what joke I'm gonna make.
Yes.
We have Ashley Birch for Horizon Forbidden West as Aloy, obviously. Charlotte McBurney for the protagonist of A Plague Tale Requiem. Manon Gage for Immortality. I guess she plays the protagonist too. And 2 characters for Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok. Christopher Judge and Sunny Suljic.
God of War Ragnarok, literally the youngest of the bunch, has 2 entries in here.
Remember, Jovah, last year Deathloop had 2.
Yeah, look. I if I didn't laugh at it back then, I probably should have. It's just that, I don't know, I'm kind of iffy on a game monopolizing the board.
Well, I do agree on that, Jovah. Compared to everyone else, I do believe Christopher Judge's performance stands out above everyone else, so I voted for him.
Well, okay, you know what? I'm not too surprised here. He was phenomenal.
I can tell you this without spoiling. They might have, someone in the writing team might have been upset by the repetition of the usage of the word boy to reach mimetic status, because Kratos doesn't do that much in Ragnarok, sadly.
Yeah, like, I won't deny.
There's not a story. I can tell you there's not a story reason, hence why it's not a spoilery thing.
I will say this.
Do that.
It's like the Portal 2 effect, because people got tired of the cake.
I will say.
Got tired of the cake memes.
I will say this. It's probably ironic that I grumbled at God of War Ragnarok getting 2 entries, seeing as how I also voted for Christopher Judge. But again, you know, little variety wouldn't hurt. But yeah, I voted for Christopher Judge.
I vote for Kratos.
Christopher Judge.
So pretty much a Kratos sweep across the board for us on this one.
Yeah.
I think he did one for this one in 2018, if I recall correctly. But
I will say this:
check again.
I won't be mad if God of War Ragnarok wins this one if it's Christopher Judge. So anyway, our next category is Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. And here's where I have to raise an eyebrow, because instead of having 5, we have 6 placements here, which makes me wonder...
To be fair, these are all complete new entries, so at least no repetition on these.
But this makes me wonder, if we didn't have to limit all the categories to 5 entries, why couldn't we have added more variety by, you know...
Remember, last year, the Game of the Year category had 6, contestants.
Yeah.
This time it has 5.
I feel like we could have had more variety, but, you know, let's not beat around the bush here.
Like,
First entry... A Memoir
Blue, developed by Cloister Interactive, published by Annapurna. As Dusk Falls, developed by Interior Night and published by Xbox Game Studios. Citizen's Leaper, developed by Jump Over the Age and published by Fellow Traveler. Endling Extinction is Forever, developed by Hero Beat Studios and published by Indie Games. Hindsight, developed by Team Hindsight and published by Annapurna. And I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, developed by Norway Games and published by Finji.
Okay.
Can I say that I just know about one of these, and from what I've been told, it's not really that great?
Which one is that, As Dusk Falls?
As Dusk Falls. Pedro told me that it's done by the person that was in Quantic Dream and then decided to quit due to David Cage's marvelous behavior.
And I heard this game isn't good.
Again, I heard it's fine at best, but not really something memorable.
I feel like I heard of a Memoir Blue, but I can't remember what that game was about.
So, for me, the vote can go through literally anything else. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to do any particular research out on these, so I don't even know, I cannot even predict who might win among these.
What about you, Dej?
I'm just going to put the Elden Extinction as for... and
because boxes...
Yeah, sure.
I voted for a Memoir Blue because that's the one I remember the most. Next category. Best Ongoing Game. Awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. And once again, here, we had to have new entries at this point. Apex Legends from Respawn at EA. Destiny 2 by Bungie. Final Fantasy XIV by Square Enix. Fortnite by Epic Games. And... Genshin Impact by Hoyoverse. Which
I will say this, mind you, I have to develop more properly onto something attached to what I'm voting here later on because it's going to be relevant for one of the later categories. But similar to the previous year, and being a player of that, obviously I had to vote for Final Fantasy XIV. Mind you, in this year, it's more of a case of I'm voting this because I don't want anyone else from this category to win. The best one I argue might be Apex Legends and Destiny 2, and I argue those are not really, that particularly special. I have reasons to be kind of withholding a bit on this, but it will be mentioned later for one of the later categories. But my point being is that as someone who actually enjoys Final Fantasy XIV and everything, and doesn't like most of the others games present here, I had to vote for that. I think that it's worth a word of note, where I'm going to reprise it, if not the next category, one of the next ones. Compared to the previous year, where it was the release of and the expansion of Endwalker, Final Fantasy XIV kind of started slowing down a bit with the updates right now, mostly because the team is focusing on Final Fantasy XVI at the same time. So while they're still producing content, it's still, not going as fast as it was, beforehand. So compared to the other games, it's the one that has to carry a bit more weight onto it. It's just a better overall experience anyway.
Okay, so...
Jovah?
I would say this, aside from Genshin Impact, which had that infamous thing going for it, I will say that I can see any of these guys winning. Like, Destiny 2 has been something of a redemption story. It's not perfect, mind you, but it's still arguably better off than when Activision was running it into the ground.
It is. Well, I do argue that the core problem with the Destiny franchise is that I am sorry for all its fans, but at least personally, the story bores me to death. It's supposed to be a sci-fi epic in the vein similar to Mass Effect, but it's just so goddamn boring.
I do feel that Destiny 2 needs to either revamp or make way for Destiny 3 because, look, guys, we get it. You had a very crap deal with Destiny 2, given your bosses and all that. But eventually you gotta spread your wings and soar, because there's only so much that Destiny 2 can do to maintain its audience here. Apex Legends, I will give Respawn credit here, despite being under...
They are trying. They have consistently been trying their asses on this. That is not deniable. It's undeniable.
I will say this, in terms of games that have just had the least trouble having to deal with, executive meddling or just greedy corporations in general... Final Fantasy XIV and Fortnite, I feel like, are some of the games that definitely express themselves the best in that regard. Yes, Fortnite is not for everyone.
And I argue it's the opposite, Jovah. It tries to be too much for everyone, and that's my point against it. Because in order to try to stay relevant, it literally whores itself out by including as many franchises as possible. And look, this popular character is in it, even though he completely fucks them over. Let's have Batman use a gun. Let's have Spider-Man use a gun.
Hey. It's nothing compared to Goku using a gun.
It gave us Goku and Vegeta and Lord Beerus.
That's exactly my problem.
Yeah.
Again, it takes the fun out of the idea of a crossover, instead makes it the most soulless and corporate as it gets.
Okay, I
cannot justify that in the slightest.
I'm gonna be fair to Fortnite. I wouldn't call it soulless or chaos. They do put a lot of character details in the character animations and whatnot. I will say this, that unfortunately, it being a shooter does limit itself with how well it brings characters over. Even flipping Thanos, of all people, uses a gun now. And again, special...
Let's be fair here, because otherwise someone else might bring this up. Let's not be kid ourselves and acknowledge that just because the people have only the perception of the MCU. Thanos has done very stupid things in the comics, like having a personal helicopter.
Oh yes. I'm.
That being said,
okay.
Endgame are cowards for not adapting.
Okay. The reason I bring this up is they were using MCU Thanos, so of course MCU fans are gonna roll up.
Being on someone is just feels wrong.
That's okay. I will say this.
I'm gonna vote for Fortnite.
Okay, look. I will say this. I do feel that Fortnite is a good game. I get why people are annoyed by it too. I won't be too annoyed if it does win, though. For me, it really does come between voting for Apex Legends, Final Fantasy XIV, or Fortnite. But since I cannot stand EA at the moment, sorry Apex Legends. Screw it, I'm voting for Fortnite.
Dabs onto you.
Just watch Genshin Impact win anyway.
Best Indie for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. And our nominees are Cult of the Lamb, Neon White,
Sifu.
Returning veteran Shrey, and Tunic.
I will say this again, taking into consideration what we said about Stray. All of these, competitors are perfectly fine being here. Each of them have strengths and weaknesses to put them on an equal level, and fit the category.
I hear nothing but fantastic things about Neon White.
Neon White is kind of, it helps be very fast paced. It's kind of reminiscent to early Platinum Games titles in how, in your face, very fast paced, aggressive it is, and how satisfying it is, makes your blood boil with excitement.
Neon White, holy cow,
Tunic is in The Legend of Zelda.
With Dark Souls.
Yeah, it works. It works for what it wants to do. Sifu is a very interesting case because it tries to play like a over-the-shoulder beat 'em up, but it has very nuances to it. The way you execute the combos, the life and death system that it works, the type of story that it wants to tell. It makes it stand out. Obviously, Cult of the Lamb, as I mentioned, is a roguelike, but its strengths are the fact that everything is two-hand drawn to the hand drawn, and it's about you basically being the leader of your own satanic cult. How did people manage to get away with this and still sold this much is amazing to me. That kind of alone kind of gives it my vote, because I think the game deserves respect. But let me just say this: any of the others could have deserved it equally. I'm just biasing slightly.
I will say this though:
I'm surprised that Cult of the Lamb didn't
Okay.
get more nominations.
I'm not too surprised that Stray ended up sweeping most of the things that any indie game would get into, because the internet's fascination with cats. And I will give Stray this. Yep, it certainly does feel like you are a cat in that game. So that being said, I'm totally gonna call that Stray's gonna get picked to win. It's the media darling and everything. Watch Stray win it.
What about what you actually voted, Jovah?
Stray. Yeah, I know, but I can't deny I really do enjoy that one.
Also, just to quickly mention the developers for this, because we did, and Cult of the Lamb is done by Massive Monster, developed by Devolver Digital. Neon White, developed by Angel Matrix and published by Annapurna. Sifu, developed by and published by Slow Clap. Stray, we already mentioned. And Tunic, developed by Tunic Team and published by Finji.
Neato. So, what are you guys all voting?
I put Neon White.
What about you two?
I mentioned this Cult of the Lamb. Like I said,
right.
I could have voted either anything else, and I would be fine whoever wins on this. But I just slightly biasing aside for Cult of the Lamb. Now, the next one is kind of a doozy for one entry in particular, but let's reserve it for last in mentioning for really good reasons.
Right.
It's about mobile games. Again, in recent time, mobile games have actually started to become more than just the stigma that they got afflicted to for being not real games or being too much afflicted by predatory microtransactions. So let's see what we have on the table here, right? We have Apex Legends Mobile, developed by Lightspeed and Quantum Respawn and published by EA. Genshin Impact, as mentioned. Marvel Snap, developed by Second Dinner Studios and published by Nuverse. Tower of Fantasy, developed by Hotta Studio and Perfect World and published by Level Infinite. And then we have Diablo Immortal.
No!
These are then published by NetEase.
Okay. Tell me you bribed the Game Awards without telling me you bribed
Jeff,
the Game Awards.
Didn't you had a marvelous speech at the beginning of the last year's performance?
Yeah. Can I make
telling to not give in into company harassments and stuff?
Can I make a remark towards that real quick?
Do tell.
he said that, and then immediately shows a trailer game made by Quantic Dream.
Oh yeah.
I think you guys did notice in the commentary as well. But again, it's also especially hilarious because news of very recently, as time as we're recording this, Activision Blizzard has decided to pull out of the Chinese market, saying that it was only netting like a 3% of what they were hoping for. And I want to remind you that this fucking game, Diablo Immortal, aside of what the actual release did and the fact that it attracted a lot of whales, as they're called, people who spend a shit ton of money in mobile games, it had the infamous moment of being announced at the BlizzCon conference, and taking aside the fan question about is this an out of season April Fool's joke, which was hilarious, but taking aside from that, they had a terrible PR by having this guy, which unfortunately felt like it was just a spokesperson for the investors in China that Blizzard and Activision had, just having the excuse of saying, do you guys not have any phones? And
it was one of the rare times when people who came to that event were so angry that they actively booed. Now don't get me wrong, we have heard boos at some shows here, rarely ever to the point where the whole crowd joins in, because most time when people attend these events, they're, well, in the case of the Microsoft Xbox One presentation, actual staff members brought there to applaud.
Also Bethesda, that screaming woman at the Bethesda conference the other year still haunts me.
Yeah, or they're just... I
idea what that is, I'm just gonna...
Let me put it like this. Usually, people either try to be nice, or they're caught up in the excitement of actually getting to go to one of these conventions. So rarely do we ever get to see people actually express their disappointment as clearly as disappointment was expressed in that. But it doesn't end there. The actual reception to this game, well, it is, to date, the lowest rated user game for a mobile game on Metacritic. And even when it comes to actual critics, it has, on Metacritic, a 59% for PC, 67% on iOS. And even still, reviews were mixed at best. Why?
I did check, it's nothing special. It's not the most atrocious thing in terms of actual gameplay, but it's nothing particularly memorable. And as mentioned, it is plagued by very, very aggressive, predatory microtransactions.
I would argue Fate Grand Order deserves to be there more than flipping Diablo Immortal.
I'd say countless other games. Me and Deji have been playing Pokemon Masters EX.
I've heard good things about that.
Too. I've been playing stuff like, for example, Warhammer 40k Tacticus, that one is actually very fun, debuting this year, which would have fit also for the category as well.
Hell, Sonic Forces Speed Battle is better than Diablo Immortal. I am not taking that back.
The point being, there are countless other mobile games that could have fit this category, but Geoff gonna need some of those sweet Activision money.
Guys. I want to take a vision into the potential future on if Diablo Immortal wins this one. All credibility is gone at that point. Don't get me wrong, credibility was fleeting already at best, thanks to stuff like the 2020 and 2021 shows, but no, let me put it like this. At least Last of Us 2 could boast that it had good production values, crunched as the team were. At least It Takes Two could boast that it really was a very good game, even though it felt like it earned awards that it really didn't feel like it deserved. Diablo Immortal has nothing to justify being called the best mobile game. You can't even try and PR this. Okay, what amazing thing about Diablo Immortal could you say, aside from the fact that it united pretty much everyone in just disgust?
It looks competently, but that's not saying much because the overall quality of mobile titles have risen over the years.
Don't get me wrong, Marvel Snap has a lot of very good reception, so that alone should not...
I'd say there are better Marvel mobile games that could have been candidated, like Contest of Champions, which is still rocking strong to this very day.
Oh, trust me, I agree that there are a lot of other better picks from mobile games in general, but as for which one I'm gonna pick, Marvel Snap, I get it, Genshin Impact is all big and whatnot. I don't care for it. And again, Genshin Impact has done its own crud here and there. Tower Fantasy is...
I don't know nothing about it. I voted for Apex Legends Mobile because I think it's the lesser of evil in all of this.
I vote for Genshin Impact because I know a lot of people like that game.
Deji got new simp confirmed.
Again, guys, though. What's gonna be your reaction if Diablo Immortal wins?
Okay. Two things. One, I will laugh, and the other thing, they're gonna be like, "Well, you see, it's mobile gaming, so nobody cares."
Except maybe back in 2018 you could have pulled this. Like, even I was kind of saying I don't really care for mobile gaming. I can get how I may have seemed a bit foolhardy here, but no, mobile gaming is in a much different place now than it was back then.
Unfortunately, people are still stubborn and think it's 2011.
Okay, I will say this. Unfortunately, a lot of companies are not exactly doing a good thing for mobile gaming's name because we still do have a lot of trash in the game of mobile gaming. So,
alright.
Yeah, but no, if Diablo Immortal wins, just... holy cow, that might actually be even more outrageous than Last of Us 2 sweep.
Next category is actually an easier one, and one that I can actually bring back something that I did foreshadowed before. Best community support, as in recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity, and game update patches. Sponsored by Discord, by the way. The candidates are Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, and the other newcomer, No Man's Sky, developed and published by Hello Games.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this. No Man's Sky. Yes!
Yeah, okay, let me elaborate on what I was about to say before. Because of how relatively slow Final Fantasy XIV has been this year, I have to say that compared to last year, I'm not willing to vote it, even though the community support is still being present, consistent. But I do believe No Man's Sky is holding up a bit better this year, so I'm gearing towards that and voting that as well.
Yeah, so...
No Man's Sky has the biggest redemption story of any video game ever.
That's pretty much where I was.
Or at the very least, Sean and his team are actually giving a shit.
Let me put it like this.
Well, remember, they got screwed over by a flood, so they lost like a good chunk of their.
Yeah. Okay, despite having enlarged a bit their team, there's still like less than 30 people, I think.
Okay, No Man's Sky was a case where it was the perfect storm in both the right way and the wrong way. Like, let me put it like this. Everything was coming together so that it made Sean Murray and his team look out to be like conmen, when in reality, they were just very terrible at giving interviews and they promised stuff that really wasn't going to be there. And yeah, they really got screwed over bad in the development phase of here and there. Thankfully, what saved them was that they did what a lot of these big corporations failed to grasp and actually looked into the feedback and fixed the game accordingly. Like, yeah, now it arguably is about they released it bad and fixed it later. But no, unlike a lot of ventures like that, it really did feel like they meant it, and it has expanded into one of the most expansive games.
As far as I know, they haven't completely, fixed every single thing. Like, so some stuff of the thing they promised is still not there, apparently, from launch. But at the very least, they bother to introduce new stuff completely that actually, help distracting. Arguably, this is one good case of an example for a game as a service. Just instead of having, a trilogy of abandoning the previous title and building up for a new one, instead you have a single title that gets updated constantly and gets something new or gets a new release, depending on a new console, launch and everything.
I've said it before, Ike. The wonky release aside, No Man's Sky is the example of how a company should treat a project that it intends to run with for a while here. Paying good mind to the feedback, being able to filter in what's helpful or not, and acting accordingly on it, instead of just saying, oh, we're sorry we messed up, but we'll try better with this other big, expansive game. Lather, rinse, repeat. So yeah, No Man's Sky definitely gets my vote.
I forgot that. Who do you vote?
It's a tie between FF14 or No Man's Sky.
Sure.
Because FF14 has impressed me in a way that so many people I know have ruined their life. Have gotten into it.
Emotional damage.
Like, yeah, it's the hit MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV that has a free trial, including the award-winning Heavenly Sword that lets you go up to
Heaven
level
Sword.
60. Whatever. I was able to recite that in person in real life. Okay, so I don't care.
Hashtag life goals.
I completed the meme because I know a lot of people really do care about it. It's how some people met their significant others through it. It's how one of my friends gave it to another friend and ruined her life because that's all she plays now.
Sad.
So Kobe Johnny has just started a new character, by the way.
All right, then. Next category.
I have things to say, but I'll leave that after recording.
Yeah.
Next category, innovation and accessibility, recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. I will give them credit, though. It is a good thing to push companies to actually have more motivation to make games accessible, as they should be. This year's contestants are As Dusk Falls from Interior Night, God of War Ragnarok by Sony Santa Monica, Return to Monkey Island, made by Terrible Toy Box under Devolver Digital, The Last of Us Part 1 by Naughty Dog, and The Quarry by Supermassive Games.
Okay, let me before the categories of this, let me just say I was surprised about last year, but I did not. I finished. If I correctly, sure did knew. I did not know about Forza Horizon 5 having an option for the. I think it had an extra accessibility option that I did not know nothing about, and that's why I didn't vote for him. But I was surprised that that one actually took the award, but rightfully so, I mind you. As for this year, let me put it this way: why isn't a Plague Tale Requiem here? Because it's just as deserving as anyone else, you know. And I will argue about this. I know what you're thinking. Sony is always mostly ahead of the curve when it comes to these. In particular, they had entire trailers showcasing what you can do, and particularly for stuff like, in this case, The Last of Us Part 1 and God of War Ragnarok. I cannot tell for The Last of Us Part 1, and quite frankly, while it is probably the only justifiable award that this game can be released upon, it feels still a bit of a stretch, to be honest. But let me tell you something that A Plague Tale Requiem does have compared to God of War Ragnarok in terms of accessibility. Options to regulate the amounts of hints that the game can give you, because I can tell you this is slightly spoilery, very slightly. One major thing that people said about Ragnarok is that the game is extremely afraid of you not getting a puzzle, and as such, the characters will almost immediately tell you the solution, Bioshock Infinite initial puzzle style.
Is that a good thing, though, in regards to innovation of accessibility?
It comes off as backseat gaming.
Not just that, Jovah, there is no option to regulate that. That's my key point. A Plague Tale Requiem does have something like that, and other games like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order had that, for example. The early Silent Hills game prided themselves in separate puzzle difficulties, for fuck's sake. I hope it gets included in a future patch. I'm definitely up for that. But in the status that the game is right now, puzzle solving is kind of a joke more than anything. And you know what's the kicker of it? I don't know if it was actual official footage that was leaked or an official interview that they gave, but someone did manage to have a video, or at least a couple screenshot about it, where Sony Santa Monica told about their envision of game making and how to manage to reach the player in terms of conveying a hint or anything. Try to guess what kind of. They had a screenshot about a Let's Player basically potentially not getting a hint, playing the first God of War 2018 game. What kind of person do you think that would be?
I know it's not Ego Raptor.
Donkey?
No. Darkside Field.
Oh, God, no! I thought that guy had rightfully gone under. Why?
No, to be fair, Jovah is still present to this day. But the point is, Santa Monica decided to base their standards in terms of how to help a person, lowering the bar to Darkside Field standards.
No!
As a fan of the franchise, I kind of feel insulted about this.
Oh no!
Like again, this category is about accessibility, and as such, these options should be present in the game regardless. I would argue that it should not be the default, the one that a player, a complete newcomer, clueless about it, that normally doesn't look into this kind of stuff, and is perfectly capable of playing and enjoying a game normally, would be impacted upon. This goes beyond the whole easy mode is now selectable meme from Devil May Cry 3, you know. Again, like I said, I don't mind this kind of thing because again, it helps more people to play the game. But I don't believe it should not be immediately presented towards you. You know, if a player is in need of those things, they will look for them naturally in the options as they normally are. Someone who normally doesn't and just wants to play the game of their own, I don't believe there's a reason why a default, difficulty for a game is normally labeled as normal, because it's the kind of middle ground that you're looking for instead of starting potentially from easy. But again, for the purpose of this category, because again, this is just a rant otherwise, I do believe the Sony titles are perfectly fine. I do believe God of War Ragnarok is just a step backward because of what I said. But I guess I will still vote that overall, because I believe none of the other titles have anything in particular that express extra accessibility. God of War made a point also to be helpful for people who don't distinguish shapes, so to the point where you can basically have particular filters that reshape, for example, Kratos and an attacker, so in particular shapes of color, so you get an idea who you're supposed to attack and everything if you actually need it. They kind of went with the extra detail onto that. And that is stuff that I can appreciate, and it makes it get my vote. I just don't believe some of the choices that they particularly use in how to express these. Well, I guess we really should have needed Shiro's input on this one, and I feel like I did talk out of my answer out of most of these. So
has she actually played God of War Ragnarok though?
I don't know. Probably not. But again, we'll have to ask her.
Any opinion on game back seating like the new God of War? Please make it an option.
Me personally, I just picked Return to Monkey Island. I hate the ending, but I can't deny the accessibility is there.
You guys are gonna get mad at me, but
you chose Last of Us, didn't you?
Yes, only because I really did like the accessibility mode that The Last of Us Part 2 had, and that's probably that should be the standard.
You know what?
That accessibility mode is literally the only justification for this remake's existence.
You know what?
That's it.
I won't even get mad at it. That was one of the few things I was willing to let Last of Us 2 have back in 2020 was its accessibility functions, because the accessibility functions were on point for that game. You did good in that regard.
All right,
next
category
is
SVR/AR, where best game experience playable in virtual or augmented reality, respective of platform.
I wonder which one on this one is going to win. It could be anyone among us.
We have After the Fall, developed and published by Vertigo Games. Among Us VR, developed by Shell Games and published also by Just Love, where the developers of the original game. Bone Lab, developed and self-published by Stress Level Zero. Moss Book 2, developed and published by Polyarch. And Red Matter 2, developed and self-published by Vertical Robot. Yes, Dej, I did vote it Among Us VR.
Same.
But I think Moss Book 2 has also a good chance to win, because both these and the Edinburgh game are very charming in what they do. They are very cute art style, cute what you do. You can, this mouse knight going on a quest. It's very cute, and and it does showcase a bit of a potential also for VR. But Among Us is the hot meme. I cannot deny that.
Alright, next category is Best Action Game. For the best game in the action genre, focused primarily on combat. Our contestants are Call of Duty Modern Warfare from Infinity War, Neon White from Angel Matrix, Sifu by Slow Clap, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge from Tribute Games, and of course, Bayonetta 3 by Platinum Games.
Love how the publisher is still able as just Nintendo and not also Sega.
Yeah, even though ain't Bayonetta still kind of...
People do forget, but this is still supposed to be a Sega IP, and sure, they literally do not do anything other than just, getting the money, recouping the money for owning the property, but they need to be credited, nonetheless.
I'll admit, this is a bit of a tough one for me between Bayonetta 3 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because both of those are remarkable games.
Well, for me, it's very simple. I voted Sifu instead. Like I mentioned, it's a beat 'em up that actually has very complex mechanics, so I do believe it makes it stand out, especially for the purpose of this category.
What about you, Deji?
Well, you see, I haven't played Bayonetta 3, and if I did, it probably would have won an alliance slide. But Shredder's Revenge is a fantastic game and my game of the year, and I'm still mad that me and Pedro were going to record it until my TV unexpectedly died.
I voted Bayonetta 3 because, holy cow, it was worth the wait.
Still weird also that it gets recognized only in this category too.
That is weird. I will say this, all memes aside, I was fine with the story of Bayonetta 3. I feel like that
I'm not particularly fond of the ending, if I have to be honest, and not for the reason you're thinking of.
Yeah, okay, so you're not shipper trash, that's good.
No, I argue it's the whole passing of the torch kind of bit.
Oh, yeah.
Me over. Especially how fast it is revolved.
Okay, I'll just say this. I feel like they took a look at Devil May Cry 5 and thought, hey, maybe you got something going there. And I'm like, guys,
Yoink.
You do know that Dante's probably gonna be back for Devil May Cry 6, right? Like, it's not like Devil May Cry 5 even writes that Dante and Virgil are dead or anything. The next category is Best Action/Adventure. Okay, so we just had...
And psych! We're back to the returning stuff.
Oh my god. Also, I'm sorry. So wait. So we just had a category called Best Action Game, but now we have one that's Best Action/Adventure. Now,
I think we had that at least last year, Jovah, as well.
We did.
I don't think it's too particularly,
I feel like
surprising.
they should have just called it Best Adventure or Best Action Adventure, but whatever. This is for the Best Action/Adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving.
There you go.
Which our categories are A Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Tunic. We've seen all these guys before, so as for which one deserves it?
Okay, I would like to say this. Again, we need to ask, why is Stray... remembering what the description of this category has been,
why is Stray
doing here? Because there's basically almost no combat whatsoever in Stray.
I'd argue...
There is puzzle solving, definitely, but there's not much combat to begin with.
I'm gonna argue Sonic Frontiers would have been a better fit than Stray, honestly.
Yeah, I will say this as well, but to be fair, my vote goes to Horizon Forbidden West, with Tunic coming to a close second. My reasoning is that Horizon Forbidden West, like I said, similar to its predecessor, in terms of just gameplay, it gives these, ample open world, different stuff that you can do, and decent puzzle solving using your hunting skills. As someone who never particularly was bothered by the whole Ubisoft Tower meme that people love to say about, in telling about how open world games were bad over the years, this one is definitely, I think, fits most the category. But Tunic fits also the description, being a Zelda clone, again, combining combat with puzzle solving, which is the root of every Zelda game when you get down to it. God of War Ragnarok, like I said, it also has that, but it has the caveat that the characters do spoil you in advance what the solutions are, making the puzzle basically pointless. So it's sadly that. A Plague Tale Requiem, would fit also, but it has less content technically than Horizon Forbidden West, and Tunic. So it's a bit of a bit down than the others.
I voted for Horizon Forbidden West as well because, again, I feel like that one is the best mix that keeps the pace going. Again, my fear is that God of War Ragnarok is going to sweep in because, holy cow, they really love to talk that game up. Like, again, I know this might seem a bit skeptic of me, cynical maybe even. It's just that, again, God of War Ragnarok is so damn recent and suddenly it just eases its way into all these categories. Like, I don't know, guys. Something may be rotten in Denmark there. Maybe they'll prove us wrong, though, still.
So that you don't want to have guess literally anything in terms of voting?
I'll put Plague Tale.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair.
Okay, just like last year, next category is basically the dumpster bin of the Game Awards because it's best role-playing. And just like last year, they dumped here a bunch of games that should have been present in other categories, but for some reason I relegated only here. We have only returning two, Elden Ring and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But we also have Live Alive,
which was a great game.
Developed by Square Enix and probably Nintendo. Mind you, this is technically the remake, not the original. Triangle Strategy, developed by Art Dink and published by Square Enix. And I can tell you, yes, this is also great. And Pokemon Legends Arceus, developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo and the Pokemon Gaming Company.
Did that seriously come out the same year as Gen 9?
Yes.
So, yeah, I have not gotten around to playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, but I've heard that it's a very good step in the direction for the series. So, I mean, I will say this, I do feel like all of these are good entries, but yeah, honestly, I do wonder where some of these entries could have maybe have been on other categories.
Live Alive alone should have been on the best soundtrack, easily. It's Yoko Shimomura and one of her best.
I will say this,
why the fuck is not in there?
Just to vary up my decisions, I'm gonna vote for Live Alive on this one. I mean, you can literally play as a badass cowboy. What else could I ask for?
A friend gave me the game, but I haven't had the chance to play it.
Physical or digital?
I feel so sorry for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 because despite being present, there are stuff that I end up choosing in their place. But I kind of had to vote for Live Alive as well. Mind you, it feels also a bit of a cheating because it's a remake rather than being a proper game.
It wouldn't be the first time a remake's won a category.
Final Fantasy VII Remake did won Best Soundtrack, if I recall correctly, in 2020. But, okay, Elden Ring is great on its own, but it's more of an action RPG than a proper type of RPGs. All the others feels more grounded enough to fit the RPG category, while Elden Ring instead, again, is more actionized. And I think it's probably the odd one out here. So yeah, my vote goes for Live Alive.
What about you, Dej?
With a regret of not voting.
I'll vote Live Alive just.
So we have a Live Alive sweep there.
Okay, next one is also great. You deserve to read this, Dej. Go ahead.
Go on.
Now we have Best Fighting Game, with a best design primarily around head-to-head combats. The nominees are DNF Duel by Arc System Works, Aiden, Neopol, and Nexon. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R by Cyberpunk 2 and Bandai Namco. The King of Fighters 15 by SNK, Playon, or whatever. Multiverses, Player First Games, Warner Brothers, and Shifu, Slow Cat. This is not a fighting game. What are you talking
about? I was about to ask Tio, why is a beat 'em up in the fighting game category?
No fucking idea.
Why every year the fighting game awards is always filled with one clown shooter?
Yeah, it kind of. Also, just to mention, why is Guilty Gear, Strives not present again when it totally should?
No.
Okay. Didn't that game release last year?
It still gets updated, got updated over the year, so it should be at least present in some kind of fashion.
I don't know if that's how it works for
last
these
year.
awards.
We had Virtua Fighter 5, which barely had any update compared to its original release on the PS3 and Xbox.
Well, that was basically a remaster.
Okay.
Barely. Barely. It was basically the same game with not much content added
I will
to
say
it.
this though. Can I just say?
Wait, before you go on, there's a reason why I don't like it when Ultra Street Fighter 5 or Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate Edition got nominated. It's like, guys, these are re-releases.
It is funny that for as much as Nicktoon Battle All-Stars tried, it ended up just being overshadowed by multiverses. Like, holy cow.
And that's so sad considering the state Warner Bros. Is right now, and I said to Deji again, the fact that the Devils are trying their fucking best to make the game enjoyable, and rich of content and being able to be played by, as much people as possible behind fan of these characters, when the entire company around them is collapsing, basically.
Also, I'll say this, like, while Multiverses is not bad, it's actually a pretty good game, I will say this, gee, what a shock! I was right that trying to make the game with free-to-play features would lead to some issues down the road here and there.
Also, Dej, you did mention, you say about, bad re-releases and everything, but I did vote for JoJo, because the game, I just love that game to death.
You see, I'd buy it, but no rollback, so it doesn't exist.
I really never had a problem with that, if I have to be honest.
I'm joking.
I know that it's important for the fighting game community, but I'm mostly casual. And to be fair, compared to its vanilla release, which I already love to death, they actually did added a lot more, not just characters, but also, different modes, very balanced entirely, the fighting system.
I will say this also, I'm sorry.
The original had it for PS3. I platformed it in I think a week or something.
Oh, okay. Because like if you had All-Star Battle R, like I'll get it on PS.
I still have to get it, but it's a Bandai Namco game. This is gonna get on cheap as hell on sales very quickly. They tend to do that, especially with licensed stuff.
I'll say this: as much as I snark at it, I will give Multiverses credit. Multiverses feels like the closest thing we've got to something of a Smash successor, while also still being its own unique thing here and there. It has a unique battle system here, a very good roster, and a voice cast so good that was actually part of the selling point of it.
I think it was actually the last role Kevin Conroy had before passing away.
But yeah... Oh, no. I will give Multiverses credit here. While I'm not a fan of the free-to-play angle of it, it is not as predatory as I feared either. It still has issues, though. Like, I'll give them this. It's relatively fine and easy enough to unlock the characters here without having to pay anything. Sure, you might have to, do it over the course of a week or something, but... No, for the most part, it is fine enough. I am annoyed. They hinted at getting a story mode. We have not gotten that yet, so... And now, given the fact that... I'm assuming that story is probably not going to be all voice, given the fact that... Well, unless you, get in a very good sound-alike, or if you already had that... Which, honestly...
I was gonna say Troy Baker.
Honestly, Troy Baker's a better Mark Hamill sound-alike than he is a Kevin Conroy sound-alike. Roger Craig Smith is actually the popular pick for a lot of people in what's going to be the new main Go voice for Batman.
The most recent announcement that he did for the game was actually a couple of days before we're recording this, where they announced the official Season 2 in terms of content, which mostly consists of a lot more costumes for all of the characters, Marvin the Marshal is a character, and a Game of Thrones stage.
But yeah, no, I mean, I will give Multiverses credit here. The player-first games, you done good. And I will give them this, they kind of had to walk a bit over Nicktoon All-Stars' feet here, because, let's be honest, that was a game that clearly was not meant to be big, which is obvious given how much they had to add on later on. Whereas Multiverses, that game was always coming from Nicktoon Battle All-Stars blood at that point. I do think that they probably revised some things in development when they saw the praise that the Nick game was getting, but no. Multiverses hit the ground running, and I do have to give them credit where credit is due.
Before asking Deji, I wonder if they might, we were talking about would-be Fury would win, I wonder if they might have Multiverses win just so they can have a moment for Kevin Conroy, potentially.
Okay, I'm just saying this though, if Shifa wins, I'm gonna scream.
I know that the game mechanics are complex enough that you can pass it as a quasi-fighting game because you focus on one enemy at a time, develop particular combos and everything, and then, and similar to a proper fighting game. But it's still a beat 'em up at its core. It's not the same thing. I'm sorry.
It's its official genre as a beat 'em up, and it should stay as a beat 'em up.
So instead, Dej, what did you voted?
King of Fighters 15, because that's
Fair
the only
enough.
one I played.
We didn't talk about it much. I think it's fine. I still am soured about not having an actual Metal Slug character, on it. Again, Ralph and Clark are Ikari Warriors first, so they do not count.
I was like, why are they so afraid of Metal Slug? Is it because Metal Slug has 4 protagonists and they're trying?
Marco is the iconic protagonist of the franchise on the cover of almost all of them.
Yeah, like Marco, Fio, and
Tarma, and Eddie.
Yeah, but it's Marco and Fio that people care about.
Mm-hmm.
I will.
Still odd, but compared to 14, 15 actually is still much stronger and is receiving decent DLCs and updates.
So,
anyway,
next category. Hey,
like
Dez.
Last year, it's not about family game. It's just best family. Just best family.
The nominations are, for the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. Cute. We have Kirby and the Forgotten Land, brought to you by HAL Laboratory. Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, brought by Traveler's Tales. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope by Ubisoft Milan. Well done to you.
Yay.
Nintendo Switch Sports by Nintendo EPD, makers of Fossil Fighters, I wish that wasn't dead, and also by Nintendo EPD, Splatoon 3. I will give them credit. All of these do have a say here and there.
Yeah, compared to last year where It Takes Two stood out and yet it still fucking won somehow.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The worst that I can say about this is maybe Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope requires just a bit extra brain power that a child might not have and needs to consult a bit the parents. But it's not that big of a deal, if I have to be honest. So all of them are qualifiable.
I'm gonna say this about Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. For all the wait we had to do for that game, it ended up being worth it. This game is the revamp that the Lego games formula has needed. Have you seen some of the compilations of combos you can do in that game? It's like Devil May Cry, but child-friendly. Well, before Sonic Frontiers came about anyway.
Whatever happens, I'm just hoping that after these Traveler's Tales can actually get out of the Lego basement and start making back games on their own.
I don't know, Tio, given the big reception that Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga got. Oof. Who knows, maybe we'll be seeing more Lego games. And you know what, I'll give Nintendo Switch Sports, it's not really my thing these days, but no, it does what it needs to do well enough.
I mean, I know what Shirai did voted in this.
Yeah,
I wonder.
I'm picking the Shirai vote.
Splatoon 3.
Let me just get this out of the way. Jeff, I know what you're trying to do with this award show. You want video games to be taken seriously as a medium, and I respect that. But this best family category always feels condescending. This is the equivalent of how now I lost
how the Oscars
treat animation.
I was about to say, it's like how the best animated feature was literally made because Beauty and the Beast almost won Best Picture that one year.
Again, jumping a gun a bit, but why wasn't Splatoon 3 potentially candidated for Game of the Year?
That's a good question. And again, it's not like we had to keep it limited to 5. No, Splatoon 3, I'd say, is a contender for Game of the Year material. It has taken Nintendo learning their lessons from Splatoon 2's kind of backlash regarding the main campaign here. It was still a beloved game, but this one hits the ground running with a massively great main campaign. We've got a pretty good DLC campaign hinted at here. The customization is off the charts. We finally get some questions to the lore answered here, and they're like, no, Splatoon 3 is really all that in a package here and there. And given how much the industry used to go gaga for shooters, it's kind of amazing that Splatoon 3 didn't make the mark here and there. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope could have possibly have fit too, though I won't deny that game has some issues, mainly with stuff that was omitted here. Like, yeah, it's cool. It has some new cast members here, but it got rid of the Yoshis, and for some reason Daisy is still missing. Why?
Also, okay, I know many people tended to enjoy that. I'm not a particular fan of the rabbits talking in this new game. It just feels odd, and especially the voice given to them.
It's their way to make the rabbits.
Rabbit Mario, I think, is voiced by David Gassman, which is always great to hear.
The voice of Rayman and Rayman 2.
It's basically
and I'm guessing he's gonna reprise the role for the DLC.
It's their way of making the rabbits less annoying to folk here and there.
Yeah, because the developers got annoyed by their
So now this makes me wonder, are the rabbits about to suffer a similar fate to Rayman? Are they going to be basically just maintained to these Mario spin-offs here? Like, no more of their own games?
Because at least these games actually gave them a bit of dignity. And if you know me, and Deji did remark at that, I think, when you talk about the Mario movie speculation, I have almost no respect and no attention from these fuckers the moment they showed up. Because I blame them as responsible for one of the big catalysts of why Rayman died. So, yeah, don't expect me to be jumping that much. Not to mention, they paved the way for stuff like the Minions from Universal, so there is that.
Again, the rabbits are kind of like the Minions in that when they first started off for their respective role, they were fine. The problem was Ubisoft thought everyone would love them from end to end. And wouldn't you know, the charm eventually wore off. And it says something that it's the Mario crossover that has done them the best justice in quite possibly over a decade when you get down to it.
Anyway, I'm just going to say this now. I also wasn't too big a fan of Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. It's a great transition to 3D, but I wasn't feeling it.
It's a first attempt at 3D. It's pure and simple.
Yeah, it does a good job better than most franchises because it feels like you're playing a 2D Kirby game, but in 3D.
I'll admit that.
The idea.
But I don't know. It just wasn't clicking for me.
I'll admit that. I'm kind of surprised you voted for Splatoon 3 instead of Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Well, you see, I love Splatoon.
And we're totally not afraid of Shiroi scalping us if we vote something else.
So what are you voting for, Tio?
I just mentioned Splatoon 3.
Oh, me too. Or me free. So yeah, anyway, Splatoon 3 sweep. Next category is the best sim/strategy. For the best game focused on real-time or turn-based similarity or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. Our nominations are Dune, The Spice Wars from Shiro Games, Victoria Free by Paradox Development Studio of Paradox Interactive, 2 Point Campus, aka a school simulator, truly everyone's funnest time, from 2 Point Studios of Sega, Total War, Warhammer Free from Creative Assembly Sega, and Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Ubisoft Milan.
Okay, let me fill in the gaps for those who don't know. In case anyone wonders, Dune Spice War is a 4X kind of game, mostly. And it's alright, nothing too special, mind you, however. Total War Warhammer 3 is fine as well. Watch Mandalore Gaming's review about the Total War Warhammer games. He does extensive coverage and tells everything you need to know. So there's that. 2 Point Campus is a distraction on PC, nothing particularly to care about. It has its fans. I just particularly don't care about it.
I'm just going to say this. Is it even really a competition?
I voted, as you can imagine, I voted for Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Same.
Because again, it fits the category in case anyone wonders, because it plays exactly like XCOM, basically. You know, you have your troops, kind of, sort of, turn-based strategy where you move along, a specific map. You have to position behind cover and shoot from there. But it's not played as a, TPS, but like an actual, strategy game.
I'm just going to say this. I'm going to be legit surprised if it doesn't win this category. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not even like these games are terrible, but like, it's Mario plus Rabbids. Sparks of Hope. Compared to...
the sequel to the best-selling game of Italy ever.
And not only that, but
It's a spicy
again,
meatball.
a lot of these other titles, okay, look, like I said, quality over clout here. Like, they're not bad, but they're not necessarily remarkable. And you know what? You don't have to be remarkable always, but again, when you're going up against Mario plus Rabbids, two of the biggest franchise names in gaming, you kind of have to bring beyond your A game.
I think Total War Warhammer as a good, as a pedigree to win.
I will say, yeah, that's probably the one I could maybe see winning for a surprise upset. Dune Spice Wars would probably be the most after that.
It's fine, but nothing particularly remarkable.
That said, though, if 2 Point Campus or Victoria Free win, yeah. Again, imagine a game about going to school being the winner in the Game Awards.
I think 2 Point Hospital was nominated a couple of years ago when it came out, I think.
Alright, let's go on to the next category.
Next one is
sports! Best sports / racing for the best traditional and non-traditional sports and racing game. We have F1 22 from Codemasters, FIFA 23 from EA Vancouver, NBA 2K23 from Visual Concepts, Gran Turismo 7, High Power 40 Digital, and Ollie World from Roll7.
I think it's a skating game?
Ollie World looks like the most unique of the bunch, only because that's probably the only one that doesn't have hyper-realistic graphics.
Look, I had to be honest, folks. I don't really have anyone in particular, but I guess it really deserves it. If I had to pick the lesser evil of something that I know, I guess I would go with F1 22.
God, you know something's wrong when EA are the lesser evil of things.
Codemasters know usually what they're doing when it comes to racing. They were just purchased by EA, nothing more. For the time being, they're fine.
I will give them credit. It was better than Gran Turismo 7. No, I'm sorry. Morally speaking, Gran Turismo 7 does not deserve that win. How was FIFA 23? Was it the same as always?
We have to ask about Dibs. From what I heard, it's basically the same. Now, it's the last game that's gonna be labeled as such. Because starting next year, they're changing in the name because of the contract rescission.
I want to say Ollie World, but it feels tacky.
I know nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I knew more about Ollie World, I might have voted for it. But
I've seen gameplay of it. It's basically a 2D side-scrolling skateboarding game, sort of.
Is it any good or?
No, it looks really fun. It's a sequel. It's a sequel to our already established series.
I guess I just feel tacky voting for a game series that I know next to nothing about, if only because it looks the most unique going off of these still images. No, I'll vote F1 22. Actually have gotten to experience that game.
Whatever. Okay, can we move on? I don't want.
What about you, Dej? Do you want to vote for anything?
I vote for Ollie World.
Fair enough.
Good.
Next, multiplayer, best multiplayer, outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game genre or platform.
Right.
The returning ones we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Multiversus, Splatoon 3, and TMNT Shredder's Revenge. The only new one here is
Overwatch
2 and Overwatch 2.
Yikes!
I'm going for Shredder's Revenge.
I know. I was definitely in a tie with me between Splatoon 3, Multiversus, and Shredder's Revenge. I ultimately have to go with Multiversus because as a Mesh clone, it really just works out that way. And it manages to have a good variety that gets updated as it goes on. But Splatoon 3 came close to a second. Shredder's Revenge is solid, but it works on a different kind of level than the traditional sense of a multiplayer.
I will say this, Multiverses. The game multi is literally in the title, and there's a good reason for it. Multiverses emphasizes team gameplay, and again, a very well-done and unique way here. So it's a tough call between that, Splatoon 3 and TMNT for me. Overwatch! Nope! I'm not even going to go into all the controversies going on with that game either, because that would turn into a rant. Call of Duty. We're finally at a point where we can say that Call of Duty is losing its luster, even in the sales department, because holy cow! Activision finally did it! They're finally running Call of Duty into the ground. I'm kind of amazed. I thought the Call of Duty fan base was always going to be there.
By Microsoft fast enough.
Yeah, like, holy cow, like, Call of Duty just seemed like that franchise that was going to be immortal, but nope. Like, it's kind of fitting with the skull-faced guy representing that game, because death is approaching.
We'll see.
Let's see, if I had to pick one, God, I'm gonna have to say Multiverses. Because, again, they really do emphasize the benefits of the multiplayer aspect there. Well done. So, next up is Content Creator of the Year. For a streamer or content creator... This one
requires some context, but let's get the nominees, Jovah.
For a streamer or content creator who has made an important and positive impact on the community in 2022. We have Carl Jacobs, Ludwig, Nebellion, Nobru, and QT Cinderella.
Okay, I don't know anything about that one.
Thankfully, this one's easy for me. I'm voting Nebellion.
Yeah, about that. I'm about to say something very mean.
What?
I understand the problems that happened in recent times that caused Nebellion to leave Twitter and everything, but I have to give a reality check to you folks. Nebellion wasn't anyone special. I'm sorry, and I do understand the fact that Nebellion has been helpful to many people, but there was nothing more than just, a repetitor machine for news that people could just make a quick Google search about. It's similar to Young Yeah, useful and technically harmless, but nothing that I would say praiseworthy of this kind of level.
Oh, geez, for a moment you had me worried that Nebellion did something terrible or something.
No, but it's just that as soon as, the fact that Nebellion decided to leave Twitter and everything, everyone started to basically immortalize the person and like...
Okay.
Guys, just no.
Okay, I'll just say this. Okay, I'll just say this.
I wanted to make a Patreon out of this particular activity, and I'm just... No.
Okay, well...
I mean, he was already doing this for free for years, so I get it. And not to wait, hear me out. He had, because people relied on him for his source of news, he had connections to the gaming industry, so he knew some things. Because that's how trustworthy he was.
That also being said, the only reason why I'm still voting Nebellion is that literally everyone else is someone that I do not know.
Exactly.
There is that too, yeah.
And apparently the guy that Deji told us to be worried about, Dream, is not present this year, so we're good to go on that front, I guess.
I wonder why.
I still don't know anything about Dream, nor I really don't want.
Anyway, next, Best Debut Indie. For the best debut game created by a new independent studio, we have Neon White returning, Stray returning, and Tunic returning. For our newcomers, we have Norco, made by Geography of Robots under Raw Fury, and Vampire Survivors, Punkle.
In case if you don't know anything about stuff like HoloLive, Vampire Survivors might be a bit weird. It's essentially a endless mode survival kind of game. You control a character in this ample map, you get surrounded by enemies constantly, and it's kind of a shooter. You have to, repel them on 360 degrees. You get power-ups on that front. It's the fun of, and it's a slight roguelike elements to it. It's the fun of replayability more than anything.
So, I'm gonna say this, I voted for Stray. I
would have voted for either Neon White, Tunic, or Stray, because among those three are the ones that I do believe fit the most the category.
I know a lot of people keep talking about Vampire Survivors, and I look at
HoloLive, because it also inspired a clone of it using HoloLive characters, and as such, it gained track by default.
Oh, so that's
I don't get it. This looks...
But yeah, I voted Stray. What did you vote for, Dej?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for Neon White.
All right, then.
I'll vote for Stray as well. Why not?
Okay.
I would have voted for Neon White.
Next up.
This one is.
Can I read one?
Gee, go on, dudes.
Best adaptation. Recognizing outstanding creative work that faithfully and authentically adapts a video game to another entertainment medium. We have Arcane, League of Legends.
No, that's the thing. It's hilarious that after the description, this is the first one. It completely contradicts the previous statement.
Yeah.
For Chi, Riot Games, Netflix. Cyberpunk, Edgerunners, Studio Trigger, CD Projekt Red, Netflix. The Cuphead Show. Studio MDHR, King Feature Syndicate, Netflix. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sega Sammy Group, Paramount Pictures. Uncharted, what are you doing here?
Yeah, like
Sony Pictures.
Oh, what? No Halo TV series? Or the Last of Us TV series?
Okay, one, Last of Us is out. Two, Pedro and I saw the first episode of Halo. We dropped it immediately.
Yes, believe it or not, what you saw was
I know, live cook reaction. I know.
Look. What you saw was probably the best episode of that. We're probably gonna cover that god awful series at some point, but let me just say this. No, like, okay. The only bigger joke than Uncharted would have been if they included the Halo series. Like, no. I feel like
in terms to win,
in terms of adaptation, I feel like either the Cuphead show or Sonic should get it. But let's be honest.
Sonic is most because, again, the thing with the Cuphead show is that it's a fun ride on its own, but it feels like it's an original property just using characters from Cuphead.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Sonic 2, though.
Okay, no. I would argue Sonic 2 feels like it's on more of its own direction. Also, Dej, have you seen how the third part of the Cuphead show ends?
No, I stopped after the first season. I didn't.
No, I'm talking about.
This is nice, but it's like it wasn't funny to me. It was just
also the reason why I laughed about Arcane is because that phrase in the description faithfully and authentically adapts a video game to another entertainment medium. No, I'm sorry, Riot. I know that you're trying desperately to people to play your game, your main game, but Arcane is a much better product than it will ever become because of this.
Yeah,
it's the best thing about it. Instead of just being bad, instead of potentially being bad, it manages to be better and not a good advertisement for your MOBA.
Let me put it like this: the Cuphead show is pretty good, but it definitely feels like it is relying on you really, really wanting an actual Cuphead show because, again, without spoiling on part 3, let me put it like this. It's more or less sort of about play the game here and there, whereas the Sonic movie feels like something where you can enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of the series, but it's not like you absolutely have to play the game to get it either. It's a good enough introduction. That said...
Because I saw the first part and it felt like this really had nothing to do with the games. It felt like it's its own thing.
I feel like...
Cyberpunk Edgerunners is also a great show on its own. It just so happens to be attached to a product that had a very, very faulty first release. It also commits the kind of sin of having a character from the game, which in the game is kind of a wimp, and in the show is played up as this big, massive threat that almost kills everyone. Again, I'm not spoiling too much about it. But
the reason for that is that
disconnection.
The reason for that is that that's how he's supposed to be in the original tabletop game, essentially. The problem was the video game kind of screwed him over. So technically, the series is more accurate in that regard. That being said, I do get the feeling that Cyberpunk is the big, uber popular thing, so it's...
No, I think Sonic is still gonna win because remember they had promotion last year, so there's a bit
honestly,
of favoritism on that.
Arcane. Because so many...
that too. They overused the fucking Imagine Dragons song the other year. God.
I need to watch that show just so
again, the show itself is great as a story, but again, it's a bad advertisement for League of Legends. they also committed the scene of recasting every single character. None of the original voice actors return, and that is kind of a bad PR move, if I have to be honest. Even before it got a better notice because of the Bayonetta 3 debacle, and they overuse and I hope you like Imagine Dragons because they overuse
I like Imagine
that
Dragons.
song over and over.
Which song?
My
Warrior?
Enemy.
Wow.
Anyway, I do agree that I feel like the Sonic movie deserves it the most out of here. I'm just worried about the big.
What we doing here? Sorry.
Okay, okay. Now look, I gave the Uncharted movie a chance. No, it is clearly them just trying to exploit Tom Holland more than anything. What the hell was Mark Wahlberg doing in there as Sully? He doesn't look like Sully.
Apparently, they when the Uncharted movie was first pitched many years ago, Mark Wahlberg was supposed to be Nathan Drake.
So we're having a Battlefield Earth situation.
Honestly, I could see Mark Wahlberg more as Nathan Drake, even at the age he was during the making of that movie. But oh god, no! Just if Uncharted wins, Sony.
Uncharted wins. This is why video games are still being treated as a joke.
No. Here's the thing. The reason I feel that the Sonic 2 movie deserves to win is not only just because I'm a big Sonic fan and whatnot, but the Sonic 2 movie was a movie that really strived to show that, yes, a video game adaptation can be true to its roots, silly as it may seem, and be successful for it. The problem with a lot of video game adaptations is because they so want to be taken so seriously that they omit certain things that were too silly from the video games, like cowards and, well, so on and so forth.
I strongly disagree but I understand that you're a little confused, but your heart's in the right place.
Okay, so what's your take on it, Deji?
To be honest,
I feel like Sonic 2 is a perfectly fine movie, but at times it's being held back together by executives that feel like it's still the late 90s, early 2000s, which is why there are some game elements here, but sometimes it's like, no, reel back. Especially the one.
Oh, okay. Let me know you. I get exactly where you're coming from here. I do laud Sonic 2 as a great movie, but I will agree, it's not the best that it could have been just yet because of certain executive mandates. My hope is that Sonic 3 will finally just be that ultimate zenith at this point. Let me put it like this. I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a very grand step for video game adaptations. But that said, I don't think it's as good as they could get, if you catch my drift here.
And one more thing about Sonic 2. Please, for the first game, just use video game music, please.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Let me put it like this. I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the best video game adaptation films out there. However, I feel like that is also a state of the status of video game adaptations. It's great, but it could have been way better if it wasn't held back. You do get where I'm coming from right here.
Sure. Let's move on.
Next.
Okay, this next one is
most anticipated
games. I know that the joke is, Elden Ring is not present, so you don't know what to do. But let me just say the nominees about it. We have Final Fantasy XVI, developed and published by Square Enix. Hogwarts Legacy, developed by Avalanche Software and published by Warner Bros. Games. Resident Evil 4 Remake, developed and self-published by Capcom. Starfield, developed and self-published by Bethesda. And The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, developed and self-published by Nintendo. Can I just say no one? And look, just to address the elephant in the room, I wasn't particularly. I mentioned when the trailers came out, but I wasn't particularly fond of the gameplay that Final Fantasy 16 was taking. But recently, Yoshi P decided to talk a bit too much in interviews. I don't think I'm the best quality. You don't know anything, Jovah?
Elaborate.
Oh man. Dej, can you help me out? I think I'm the least one of the three that should be talking about this.
Go on, Dej.
Someone asked him in an interview, why aren't there any minorities in the game? And he just basically responded. He went on a long explanation.
Oh no!
Which could have easily been like, "Oh, I forgot."
Oh,
it's like kind of pulled the PR statement about, well, there was a majority of white people in your medieval Europe.
Oh goody, that old excuse. Even though that plays into the one little problem. There were black knights. Oh, there were black samurai here. Like, here's the problem with some people going for the historical thing here. They do realize that history kind of went out of its way to not acknowledge people of different races or color who actually were involved in some of those medieval time. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, they were all big in the majority here, but to act like they weren't there at all? Yikes. Just yikes.
Again, I mentioned this also to Shiro and Reeves, and with Shiro, I basically just said that I want to wait a while and see how this develops in terms of, because that in itself is not technically impacting how the game actually plays out. Because as Yoshi P himself mentioned, what the team cared more about is how the character actually are constructed in terms of personality rather than how they look, which is a noble sentiment, but again, bad PR response.
It kind of exposes a bit of a flaw with some Japanese devs and how they're a little isolationist with who they want to have in their games and all that.
But
yeah.
Okay, again, I just want to wait and see how this goes. But this alone makes me don't want to pick Final Fantasy 16. I'm more baffled that Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth is not in this list.
I am surprised by that too. I mean, I will say this. I think something holding back a few of the contestants here is that I don't know if we've really seen enough of some of them to really consider them high anticipation, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels almost like you could have picked almost any 5 games that were coming out in the future.
As for the other categories, Hogwarts Legacy is just... Okay, it might be interesting to play as a school simulator, magic, and game of your own, but it's way too knee-deep in swamping into controversies to be excited about, if I had to be honest. I feel sorry for Avalanche Software because they're trying their probably hardest about, but they're just being given a terrible hand to deal with.
It's hard for me to feel anticipation for that game, and that's not just, the massive, gigantic and murderous elephant in the room here and there, but just the game itself does not look that interesting. Mind you, Avalanche Software they're a dev team of mixed blessings here. You may remember them from giving us such classics as the Hannah Montana Spotlight World Tour game.
Again, ideally, this is supposed to be their breakout title, similar to how Plague Tale has been for Asobo Studios.
And to give them credit, the Toy Story 3 game was good, until it crapped itself at the end.
But again, I'm sure the game in itself at its core might be fine. I just wish it was dealing with a better property. Again, as for the others, Starfield, I think it's gonna be perfectly fine. Like I said last year, I don't think it's gonna be that horrible thing because again, Bethesda has a bad stigma upon themselves right now.
I think that hopefully Microsoft
gameplay presentation, I just particularly don't care for it.
My hope is that Microsoft, in trying to get their reputation up, will go, guys, we're going to make sure that Bethesda actually give this game the care and respect that it needs, and they actually follow through with that, so hopefully Starfield should be fun.
Sorry, give me a second. There's a Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Look, I don't outright hate Breath of the Wild, but it's another case where I don't particularly care about a lot of aspects of it, like the weapon durability system, and if this game is keeping even stuff like that, I'm not gonna be particularly jumping at the occasion. And lastly, Resident Evil 4 Remake. Okay, no, let me be fair. I'm sure it's gonna be a perfectly fine third-person shooter on its own. But judging from the early trailers that we've got so far, it tries to be drearier, to be more in tune with the atmosphere of Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake, And because of that, it kind of loses the camp, and I'm asking, who asked for this?
Like, here's the thing. Everyone and their mother was
people
saying
remember
RE4 did not need a
for
remake.
a couple of things. The camp, the weapon design, and the bullshit cuties, So you might work around on like one or two of those things, but keeping down the camp, because we see in one of the trailers that Leon still seem to be quipping, but you can kind of tell that they want to take the story much more seriously than in the original release. And the problem with that is that has always been a constant carry-on scene for Resident Evil. The moment they start to take themselves way too seriously, it's when the games become less memorable. Chris punching a boulder, stuff like Chris punching a boulder, Leon, doing stupid one-liners before throwing a knife at Salazar, even Jill getting a one-liner before killing Nemesis in the third game, for example. Even stuff like Resident Evil 7, with the Baker family.
If I
Resident
may,
Evil works at its best when it combines both the dread of horror and the dark humor, in terms of comedy, even when it can gain a bit of a tone dissonance. This one is, so far, doesn't even try.
If I may, I feel like the Resident Evil 2 remake kind of created something of a domino effect here. The Resident Evil 2 remake was a remake that, well, you probably will recall, was one of those things where people went, oh yeah, that'll happen when Resident Evil 2 remake comes. So when it finally did, it was very well applauded here and there. Now the thing about the remake was that, okay, stuff was drastically different to the point where, at this point, we've got two different universes sort of going here. One where the remake timeline took a place, seeing as how some events in the remake definitely clash with what happened in the originals. And I guess 7 and 8 are continuing from said original timeline here. Now, the thing
Probably
with
because, again, the problems with 7 and 8 is that there's a lot of stuff from the Revelations duology and from Resident Evil 6 who is not being brought up in the slightest, so we're just left in the dark on that.
Though, on that regard there, where the hell is Jill in the new Resident Evil games?
Where's Ada, as an example? She was supposed to be in 8.
Where's Leon?
And where's Billy?
Where's Barry? Hey, come to think of it...
Barry was in Revelations 2, at the very least.
Well, hey, speaking of Revelations 2, are we ever going to deal with the fact that, Wesker's sister may or may not be possessing that girl? Regardless, though. Where am I getting with this? My point is that Resident Evil 2 Remake definitely went for much more of a more grown-up tone than the original Resident Evil 2 did, which, to make it darker and whatnot. Now, we did still have some one-liners from Leon, but there was a lot more wanton swearing from characters, which, to be fair, you kinda get it here and there, For the sake of that remake, it was fine here. People, for the most part, liked it. The problem started to arise with the Resident Evil 3 remake, where Jill was way more abrasive in that remake than she was in the original game. And
And conversely, instead, we get an extensive cutscene of her being deep-throated by an enemy. Someone's enjoying that, I guess.
Yeah, I'll say this. There's a ton of reasons people were disappointed with the Resident Evil 3 remake. Not least of all, how goddamn short it was. But hey, we still made it full price because we released it along with the Resident Evil Survivor game, which, surprise, surprise, did not take off here. I do
Apparently
like...
it's still better than stuff like, Umbrella Corps, but that's not saying much.
I do like how one of the things devs have made sure to do is assure people, no, we assure you Resident Evil 4 is not going to cut content from the original. It's going to be a media enough experience here. But again,
It seems to contradict the leaks, because most of the leaks suggest that stuff like Krauser are getting cut.
And we already know that the dog may be getting cut for some baffling reasons.
This has to be mentioned. I know that we're dragging this a bit too much, but just to mention. At least on Twitter, there is an account called "Can You Pet the Dog in a Video Game?" that is specifically cataloging, games where you can actually pet an animal and, give it a boost. And sometimes gaming companies' Twitter accounts love to play tongue-in-cheek and, retweeting them or tagging on this specific account because it has gained enough popularity about it. And it's mostly has been, very normal, tranquil, just mention you can pet the dog here, you can pet the animal here, it's very cute and fluffy, nothing particular here. Then it came this news that, at least allegedly, from what we've seen so far, one animal that you can save in the early game of Resident Evil 4, a dog from a trap, allegedly you can find in the remake that has been actually killed by the same trap, and the account tweeted just, what the fuck? Just out of nowhere.
And the thing is, all things seem to hint that, no, we will not be able to save the dog here. Mind you, that was kind of a
because this is gritty and new.
Again, this was one of my big fears if they ever did get around to remaking 4, and you know what, I know some people are probably gonna praise 4 for this more mature take here and there, but I'm like, 4 without the cheese, just, no.
It loses flavor. But again, all of these rant just to mention that, Resident Evil 4 Remake is not really something that I will pick. But in general, none of these entries are something that I'm particularly interested in. Compared to last year, that even with my bias aside of Elden Ring, I could have said that I would have been interested in both Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok. But this is just almost barren wasteland. I guess I will say, Tears of the Kingdom if I had to vote for something, but that's just because I had to pick something. I'm
gonna pick Tears of the Kingdom here. I feel like Tears of the Kingdom has the least baggage.
Yeah. I was just...
Go on, Dej, what would you pick instead?
You see, I'm torn between Final Fantasy 16, RE4, even though I haven't played that, and I'm not too big on Breath of the Wild. Maybe I'll make some improvements.
Let me put it this way: if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would have been present, I would have voted for that. Again, problems that they have aside from the ending of Remake Part 1, definitely they would have fit more the category of the most anticipated game of next year.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. My most anticipated game is the next 3D Mario game. So
okay,
but that's not here. So
okay. I will say this though. I wonder, did they just not include Remake Part 2 because they knew that was probably going to be the one that won? Because, let's be honest.
Or if I had to guess, it might get a delay, so we're going to probably have it next year.
Or you're going to want another Square Enix game on this category.
Well...
Stop them for doing other stuff that's similar to that.
True, because holy cow, but yeah, no, I voted Tears of the Kingdom.
Alright.
Let's go to the next category. Best
all the remaining wars
game.
are about esports, so we should be skimming those quickly because they mostly are not...
Rocket League, that's all I chose.
So we got Counter-Strike Global Offensive by Valve, Dota 2, also by Valve, League of Legends by Riot Games, Valorant, also by Riot Games, and Rocket League by Psyonix.
As the previous years, I'm voting for the classic CSGO. Gotta go with that.
I'm voting
for
enemy spotted.
Alright, I'll go for Rocket League then.
Next,
because I do enjoy that game. Wait, Dej?
Rocket League.
Oh, of course. Alright, next category. Best esports athlete. The esports athlete judged to be the most outstanding for performance and conduct in 2022, irrespective of game, and good luck for you if you don't follow esports to this degree.
So, similar to last year, I knew nothing about these people, so I voted for the one that looked the coolest and had the best nickname, as in Faker.
I guess...
And also for Principal, because one of the... Okay, I probably could have voted for Simple, because I have a soft spot for Natus Vincere, his clan. And I definitely wouldn't have voted for Carrigan, because, as usual, fuckface clan. But again, Faker seems to be the coolest of these guys, even if he plays League of Legends.
I guess I'll go with Jacob Ye Whitaker. Which leaves you, Dej.
I don't know.
Pick a card. Pick any card.
Simple.
Okay, then.
Alright, next category. Best esports team.
Yeah, again, no Natus Vincere like last year, but Face Clan is sure here. So I guess instead I had to go, rely back on the closest that it's here in Dark Zero Esports for Apex Legends. But again, it's more of a vote because I have to.
I'm picking Dark Zero Esports because Apex Legends is the game I like the most out of these. So, well done, Dark Zero. You got a sweep from us. We have 2 left, actually. Best esports coach!
Now, this one is one for Natus Vinceres, the Blade, Horodensky, so I'm voting him.
I'm gonna go with Matthias BZKA Tarascone.
Tarascone from Loud. Deji?
I don't know. Maybe the Loud because he has a trophy, so he looks happy.
So, same one as me. Got it. Well, that was fun. Next, and our final one, Best Esports Events.
We have EVO 2022, 2022 League of Legends World Championship, PGL Major Antwerp 2022, the 2022 Mid-Season Invitational, and Valorant Champions 2022. The only one of these I know is EVO, so I have to go with that, I suppose.
Same, EVO.
Especially because, if I recall correctly, now it has been mostly cleansed by the controversies.
Thank God. Otherwise, I would feel dirty picking EVO.
But yeah, that's it, folks. That's them's the nominees and everything. So just to conclude, a couple of predictions or expectations on the games actually announced, and I'll just mention because I know I'll be the quickest about it. I mostly just want a continuation of the news of the games that were announced last year because they have not received particular updates for all the years, so I kind of wish we got them. The 2 in particular that I'm looking forward the most are Space Marine 2, 140k Space Marine 2, and the Wonder Woman video game that the Monolith team that's working for Warner Bros. Is making. Again, I know that the company is in a turmoil. It's the one we're looking forward the most because it's implementing the Nemesis system for a criminal and super criminal level of activity, and I want to see how that pans out because the Nemesis system is great to be used in any capacity. So,
care to elaborate the Nemesis system for those who may not know?
It's sort of a randomizer that particularly creates an enemy type in terms of body, personality, voice, job, clothes that they have, and set of powers that they have. Then, if you allow certain conditions to happen, these characters, automatically generated characters, can actually grow and have a mini story arc on their own where they can potentially betray you or becoming your ally. You having to face them multiple times, becoming your arch nemesis, potentially. And all of this is generated somewhat randomly. It's never particularly scripted about it, so there's a bit of unpredictability factor, but it's amazing because it's really something that you feel like you're partially in control in creating your own mini story in regards to these characters, and it worked very well for the Middle-earth duology. And when I get to record those games, I'll showcase plenty of examples that you can do with that. So a system compared to that with Wonder Woman feels interesting. This is something that I want to keep my eye upon. In terms of new announcement, I was hoping last year we will see something for the Big Three, but we surprisingly didn't. So I'm not expecting anything particular again this year. Maybe a Hellblade 2, another Hellblade 2 trailer or something from Microsoft. The closest thing I will say is that I'm wondering if we're going to get another trailer for the Super Mario Bros. Movie. But,
wait, Theo, do you think he's going to make a cameo in that movie?
You
Geoff
really
Kieghly?
want to bank on that, Dej.
Because it's Geoff, and you know how.
Okay, Dej, he has a limit, okay?
Not just that, on that note, I'm expecting potentially Kojima's new game to be announced, because guess what game Geoff did make a cameo in?
Death Stranding. Has Kojima hinted that he has his new game in the ready?
Or at least probably to show something. There have been also a lot of rumors behind the scenes about actors and particular actors coming and going to Kojima Productions, and people speculating they're kind of recording for the similar cameo roles that Death Stranding had. But we'll have to see exactly what it entails. And I think the time is ripe for it. We have a teaser trailer potentially. Who knows? Other than that, I'm open to surprises, I guess. We'll have to see. But mostly, my biggest speculation is about consolidation of titles we have seen previously.
I sure would like to see the next 3D Mario game. Maybe an Odyssey 2, eh, Deji?
They're gonna save that for Nintendo Direct, Jovah.
Okay, then. So how about a Mario and Sonic platformer crossover? Now is more the time than ever.
Was that a more Olympics game? Don't mind if I do.
But no, seriously though, at this point, Sonic and Mario are possibly the most compatible they've been gameplay-wise. Like, between Sonic Frontiers and Mario Odyssey, you could easily make a crossover with the two here and there. Though, speaking of Sonic Frontiers DLC, because we do know we're getting more free updates.
It's a bit early to mention that. Okay, that's another thing that I didn't mention. I think something that can fit for the Game Awards, and it's been a while to be announced, the Elden Ring actual DLC. Yeah, the Elden Ring has been a constant presence at the Game Awards, and the game has been released early on this year. So I think the time is right to actually announce a trailer, because Bandai Namco sure as hell won't miss the chance to actually have DLCs based on this. If Dark Souls, got several DLCs over the course of the 3 games, this one is gonna get too.
One thing does come to mind. Can we think of anything particular that might be tied to a possible winner, or not even a winner, but a candidate? Because I think sometimes they do tie in stuff directly to the candidates of a certain award for
Horizon,
a game announcement.
Probably Horizon. Maybe I don't know.
Really?
DLC for Horizon.
I think they already. Okay, yeah, DLC.
It has been released at the same time as Elden Ring, so those two are the perfect candidates.
We're probably not getting a Sonic free trailer.
No,
maybe the Knuckles TV show.
Yes, the Knuckles series. Maybe
Knuckles telling you not to vape.
Is Sonic Prime supposed to be out before or after the Game Awards?
After.
Okay, so I could see us getting a Sonic Prime trailer. If only because, Sonic Frontiers has been getting some good buzz here, so I could see Sega wanting to get on top of that. Finally, they're at least expanding the team at Sonic Team, thank goodness. And, of course, that Accolades trailer showed that they definitely are taking into mind the stuff here, so would love to see a new Mario game here. How about an F-Zero game?
Was that more Mario Kart 8 DLC? Don't mind if I do.
And poor Captain Falcon, man.
Black Shadow should have been, an Echo Fighter in Smash Ultimate.
I'm still waiting to see what was up with that new design for the Blue Falcon in Smash Ultimate. Come on, Luigi's Plunger eventually meant Luigi's Mansion 3,
They even got the fucking Daytona singer for an F-Zero medley.
Come on, guys! At least, would giving us an F-Zero game really hurt at this point? You guys
just re-release GX and give it online.
Just so that people can rage about the difficulty.
I'd say
people will be like, man, big F-Zero fan, first time playing. Oh.
And I'm dead.
I'd say F-Zero GX should at least get a remake instead of just a re-release. That game is great, but it's got some jank. But yeah, no, really would appreciate a lifeline for F-Zero. Send help, please.
I was gonna suggest that maybe potentially it's the time to finally have a release date for the Advance Wars remake, but if anything, no, it's kind of probably best if the media doesn't talk that much about it.
Yikes. Hey, maybe we'll get a surprise appearance from Metroid Prime 4.
Who knows? Again, I get the idea that if Nintendo wants to have big announcements, we're just going to save them for their own Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they have given some big announcements at Game Awards as well.
Smash DLCs are, more than, stuff that they can allow themselves to have at events that are not Nintendo Directs.
Oh, that Sephiroth reveal was so great.
At least better than Joker's.
Okay, then. Let's see. Maybe we'll get a look at Starfield, I guess.
I swear, if Jet does the same thing we did last year and has a trailer for Hellblade by emphasizing the word cinematic again, I'm gonna riot.
Yeah, no, just no. Maybe we'll also get a look at that Last of Us series in the making as well.
Mm-hmm. Is that it, Joel? That's what we are. We are the Last of Us.
So, maybe we'll get more DLC for Pokemon Legends Arceus.
No, that ship has sailed.
Really?
Gen 9 is the main focus.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe they'll announce a patch.
Imagine a patch being a big announcement at a Game Awards show. Though for Gen 9's sake, that might actually be it.
I can totally am ready for something stupidly crazy similar to that Fast and Furious game that announced a couple of years ago, which turned out to be mediocre at best.
Reminder, that was like the grand finale announcement.
Vin Diesel going on stage and, hyping the shut the fuck up.
And Michelle Rodriguez was drunk.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she admitted she was drunk. I was wondering.
Yeah, man, you can tell.
Similar to Carrie Fisher in the Star Wars Holiday Specials, you can kind of tell when a person is drunk or high.
Remind me.
Or Joe Mahal at the Video Game Awards that one year.
Was it 2021 that they showed up at the end of?
No.
2019.
2019, yeah, that one. Oh god, yeah, like, again, the grand finale game shown at a Game Awards ended up being terrible. And mind you, weirdly enough, this was from Vin Diesel's game company, which he specifically made to make good tie-in games.
Alright, so Deji's prediction?
Alright, now let's just get the dark horse out of the room. Or the unfortunate thing. Activision has been teasing Wampa League, so we're gonna see that.
Oh my god, I completely forgot about that. Like, and hey, from what we've heard about Wampa League, it ain't looking pretty. Freedom.
I just want to know what this is.
Well, from what we
is it a Crash Bash remake? It's an original thing.
From what we've heard, this is like a free-to-play mobile game in a console suit, essentially. Again, going off of what we've heard from leaks and whatnot, like
apparently it was supposed to come out much earlier, but then all the layoffs and everyone went to the Call of Duty mines happened, and then it got retooled. It's just something that we're not supposed to see because they teased an image, and the image got leaked.
Okay, if the leaks that we've seen of it are true, it's not interesting. It feels like something that's just keeping us from another mainline Crash game, which we might prefer. Also, I feel so sorry for anyone who was expecting Spiral 4 to come next.
Hi, I'm right here.
Well, I'm sorry, Dej. We're holding the funeral next Monday.
Again, I know that people are mostly against it because monopolies and stuff, but I'm only seeing something positive coming out of the acquisition from Microsoft part. So, again, that cannot happen fast enough.
Yeah, and you know what? Some people say, oh, why haven't Microsoft fixed Activision yet? Microsoft don't own Activision yet because of certain...
Microsoft hasn't even fixed what's going on with their own studios right now.
Okay, aside from that, what we have technically seen improvements from Bethesda after Microsoft bought them so far, technically.
Mostly also the unification of a launcher instead of, Bethesda abandoning their own personal launchers and fully migrating on Steam and the Microsoft Store, which is very, very appreciated.
And again, I do know they could easily just as much go back on it, but as far as we know, they're not going to gate off Crash to being Xbox exclusive, because...
I can tell you for a fact that if the same happens with Activision and World of Warcraft gets instead a proper launching window from Steam, it will gain a lot more notoriety than it has right now.
Exactly. Like, holy cow. Like, again, Microsoft have done some incredibly dumb stuff, but I wouldn't say... they are tone deaf to the point where they would totally blockade a lot of these games from coming to Steam, which they have their own profit in, mind you, because, they kind of cornered the market on PC gaming and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. But again, we'll have to see on that front. But aside from Wampa League, what about the rest, Edge?
A lot of people are speculating because the Switch's hardware is extremely outdated. So, and because we have a new... one, I think that Tears of the Kingdom is going to be shown off.
Would not be surprised about that.
But I believe that they might launch console teaser at the Game Awards.
Oh, you think we might get like
just so they can be like Tears of the Kingdom releases around the same time as.
I guess now it's a tradition to have the Zelda game being a bridge between consoles.
So yes. What do you think the new console will be called? The Switch 2?
Yeah, more than likely.
Probably.
Well, you know what? I don't think they could come up with a worse sequel name than the Wii U.
People thought the 3DS was called the DS3.
The Switch O.
Oh God. Okay, but okay, but seriously though, like, it is hard. Like, okay, look, the Wii U, I get how that may seem like a good name at the time, but no, that was obviously a screw up. I struggle to think about how they could blatantly come up with a terrible name for a sequel to it. Like, just call it the Switch 2.
And obviously, I'm expecting a trailer for them because they want that thing to succeed, and there's also leaks came out. Not this isn't from like a hearsay, but information did get leaked. That's they're going to have a Super Bowl commercial. Apparently, Danny Trejo's going to voice a character.
Danny Trejo, what? Okay, look.
Danny Trejo as Cranky Kong if he didn't already the voice actor for him.
Okay, here's my take on the Mario movie. It is at a point where it could go either way from here. Like, I'll admit, that initial trailer we saw, okay, it was simultaneously better and worse than what I expected. It was better in regards to Bowser, of course, but when it came to Mario, yeah. Like, it literally comes down to how Jack Black interviewed compared to Chris Pratt. Like, Jack Black feels like he legit is a guy who is all for the role. Chris Pratt felt like he was reading off of a script when he said, I've been playing Mario since childhood.
That was so embarrassing.
It's funny because if you see the initial reaction to when he announced that he was Mario, it's a different energy.
It feels more natural.
Yeah.
What happened?
I guess he was extremely busy and he just had to record this on the fly.
Yeah, he has been filming Guardians. He has been filming Star-Lord stuff for a long while now.
This is my worry here because he is supposed to be playing the main focal point, Mario himself. So if he's not giving it his all, I'm just saying.
That's just one bad PR thing. So I'm going to wait a bit.
It was the bad PR thing mixed with his actual take that we saw from the trailer. Like I said, maybe they just got one of his worser moments here and there.
Yeah.
But if that's going to be his performance throughout the movie, oof.
And here's the thing, he can't voice act. Remember, he was in Ben 10. He voiced older Cooper.
Oh my God, that was him?
Yeah.
He had the substantial roles before Guardians of the Galaxy, to be fair, Jovah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he was
before
in Parks
his
and
career.
Recreation.
I forgot if we did mention, he was actually apparently recommended by the actress of the female lead in Commando. I forgot we mentioned when we commented that.
Oh, the one from She's the Boss or something?
I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, that pretty much it?
Maybe we'll see something, a Naughty Dog teaser.
Probably. They did mention that they're working on a multiplayer.
Fractions, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully we'll see that.
Like I said, possibly more The Last of Us series.
Again, in general, I'm not counting too much on stuff from the Big Three because that's what I was hoping last year and it did not happen.
Admittedly, to be fair, it did happen at one of the Game Awards where all the Big Three really presented to one. In fact, there was even that one time when all the Big Three stood on stage one by one.
It's so awkward.
But hey, everyone was thinking they were going to eventually at some point just brawl it out.
Of all the three, Phil Spencer is the only one who's still working.
Yeah.
Alright, guess that's it then. So there's our votes and our predictions. who knows what will happen. So stay tuned for today, December 8th. There you go. For when the Game Awards happen, and we'll see if any of the shit that we mentioned here is gonna happen or not. Who knows?
See you then.
Bye.